And okay,
Yeah.
we're here live. I'm here live with Warhorse today, and it's my fault. I started late. I just woke up about 15 minutes ago. Was it Warhorse? I think, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
shoot, I got some. I stayed out late last night out in the garage. I got a couple projects going out there, and I just could not pull myself away. It was like impossible for me to pull myself away. Uh, we got we talked about the scooter, and I'm building a bike and doing man shit out in the garage. I finally got it cleaned up this week. For I've only been working here. I only been here for like since, oh God, was it March? I moved in again. I've been in and out of this house, but the garage, you get all the boxes everywhere, and then it just looks like a daunting task.
Yeah.
Finally
Jeez,
this.
I still got boxes from when we moved in here 11 years ago that are still marked,
Yeah.
and I've thrown them from the porch to the laundry room out to the that carport thing I got out there,
Okay.
and now they're covered in spider webs, and I have a funny feeling if I open them up, there's going to be a rattlesnake in it or something,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just wild, and it's mostly Christmas and holiday crap and
Holiday
everything else
stuff.
that.
Oh God, yes.
Oh, Jesus, my wife was horrendous when it came to buying that crap all the time, and we got to the point now with a small house that I got a little tabletop Christmas tree, years ago, because we couldn't put up the big one anymore, and it
Okay,
was
yeah, that's
stupid.
what I got now. It's a tabletop Browns football tree.
I'm not even putting one up this year. I mean, I'm just so out of the spirit. Like, what the
Yeah,
hell?
me
I
too.
already bought my widescreen TV. That was my Christmas present
Yeah, you
to
got yourself
myself.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I got that 55 incher, and I'm done, man. Fuck it.
Yeah. I just did I did that for myself with the Asus the podcaster that I bought in case I ever want to use it. I never use it because I can sit out in the living room on the big porn couch and do the podcast from there.
Yeah,
But yeah, we do those things. But I got children's stuff and toys, and I don't want to throw them out because I keep calling my brother's kid, which just had a kid, and I keep, come and take this. This is like thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff, and then they won't do it. Uh,
I know. What is it with these kids anymore? I mean, not to interrupt, but I've got all this RC remote control helicopters, and I
yeah,
got the ones that you can fly upside down, the ones they do all the fancy stuff with, right?
yeah.
Um, and then I got some of the like coax that have the four blades on them, which are more or less a toy variety. I've got all these controllers. I've got tons of spare parts. I got well over, geez, 5,000, maybe $6,000 invested in this shit, right?
Hmm.
And I went to the car wash the other day, and I asked a guy I know there. I said, "Hey, you know anybody that's into the RC stuff?" And he said, "Well, my cousin, he's working here now. Young guy, nice, very nice. About 20, or looks to be." And I says, "Hey, you're into RC stuff?" He says, "Yeah, it's a helicopter." He says, "Well, I'd like to, but he says, that it's expensive." I says, "Good." I handed him a card. I says, "Here, come over to my house. I'll give you everything I got." And he was, "Wow, you'll give it to me now?" I said, "Sure."
Yeah,
I said,
yeah. Get
"Come
it
on
out of my
over."
hair.
Yeah. I said, "Come on over. I'm not going to play with it again. My eyesight isn't good enough anymore. I'm really not into it uh, like I used to be. It was good for taking my mind off when my wife was sick and everything else, and I was playing with it. But I like building them better than I did flying them because I never got good at flying. So I got all this shit. You know what? The kid still hasn't been by here. If it were me that got that offer, I would have broken my ass to get over there and get this shit before I missed out. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Does that tell about our society or something? There's way too
God.
much disposable income where if you could save a couple $1,000s, if someone offered me a workbench or something and I didn't have one or some kind of tool, I'd be over there in a split second thanking them with a 12 pack. Uh, but
Yeah.
women, generally, and in most, in some blue pill guys, they get these offers that are like, come on over and take this stuff and it'll save you thousands. They'll go, no, we'll just go buy new stuff.
Oh man, but this stuff, and James Denton here, he says he'll take them off my hands. Well, James, if you live near me or live in Florida, come on and get them.
Go and get them.
Get in touch with me. I'll give you the address. Um, I'm in Citrus County, Florida, but I'm not going to package them up or anything. This is why I didn't want to get on eBay, and then if they get damaged, then it's a big nightmare back and forth. And this whole shipping, it's so expensive to ship anymore that, what you're selling it for, the effort you go through of putting it on eBay, then
Yeah.
packaging the shit up, making sure it doesn't get broken. And these are fragile things. I mean, you can't just throw them in a box and let them rattle around, And I'm thinking to myself, all you have to do, all right, James says he's in Florida. All right. I'll get with me through my private PM or whatever in my channel, and or after the hangout's over, if you've got a G Plus account, we can get on a hangout real quick, and I'll give you the address, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
He's got a G Plus. He just talked to me in a G Plus account.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, we can do it there. We can do it in the side chat on the G Plus. That's no problem. I mean, I really don't want to give my phone number out on a live hangout.
Oh yeah, yeah. I always wanted to get one of these throwaway phones, start it up for a month, and give my phone number out and just record everybody calling me and yelling at me.
You fucking asshole! You.
Hangouts, yeah, that would be funny. That would just be funny. I would get a kick out of that. It would be $20 well spent.
Yeah. No, I mean, usually my phone is unplugged anyway. I don't. I don't really have anybody that I have to talk to anymore, and the telemarketers that call just tend to piss me off.
Oh yeah. You know what my phone is? My son has it. He's just when he moved in, he kind of grabbed it, and now it's his phone.
Yeah. Well,
that's how much I actually use it. Me buying a smartphone, it's like that one time I used it to talk to you and show you the scooter, and then that was it. I think that was my hundreds and hundreds of dollars of investment use right there.
Yeah. Well, I got to have the landline because that's my internet service too.
Yeah, me too. And G Plus, if I ever want to make a call, you just hit that button, call on G Plus, and you can call anybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And talk to them. It's not like you're without a phone, and I could do that with pretty much Facebook now too, and you could track down. Facebook is like the phone book,
Yeah.
You just type in their name, and a friend comes up, and then you just Facebook them and like, hey buddy, what's up?
Yeah, I canceled that account. When my wife went in a nursing home, she had a Facebook account, and of course, her daughter, our niece, and all these young girls, and they're talking about shoes and dating and getting laid and going out to clubs and all this crap. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck am I in grade school here? So I canceled the account because what do I care about? I don't care about it.
Oh God, arts and crafts and women, and it's way overboard. And the silly stuff they talk about. Hey, I got a real quick story about that silly stuff they talk about. We had archery class. Remember archery class when you're in high school?
Yeah.
And I'm doing archery class, and the arrow snaps, and it went into my hand. You ever see those when they happen? You get those. No. It went through my hand out like it's slivered and went out one side and out the other side, and it really fucked my hand up. But I snap it off, and I walked up to the teacher, and there she is. She's a skinny little brown-haired girl, and this is kind of my first kind of implication that women were different. She's talking to another female student about making hats and what hat they can use in church. Remember how women used to wear special hats to church?
Oh yeah, with the flowers on them and all that bullshit.
So they're talking about the designs they use. So I'm standing there with this arrow in my hand, and I'm standing there, and I said, "Miss," and she goes, "Wait your turn, Joe."
Oh jeez.
And I'm standing there listening to this conversation, and it's like getting imprinted on my brain, because I'm in pain. I'm just trying to be courteous, because I finally I lifted my hand and I said, really, I got something here that needs to be taken care of. And then she looks at it. You know what she did? She
Yeah.
passed out.
Oh, jeez.
She
Yeah,
passes out.
good help there.
She hits her head on the wall, and the ambulance comes and they take her away and leave me sitting in the office.
Yeah, I know. This is, I don't know. God, there's so many things wrong with that, where, I don't know. And it's getting worse out there too,
Yeah, it's getting worse, and that sums up society for me in a nutshell. What I could expect, About an hour later, the principal walks out of his office after doing some what kind of he's just doing his accounting work, or principals did like the accounting work back then, and he looks at me and he says, "Joe, nobody took you to the hospital?" And I said, "No, but they took Mrs. Hayes about an hour ago."
Oh, Jesus.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, that kind of stuff is silly. And we get that in society, men do.
Well, you know
Yeah,
what it is I mean, I always equate that what's going through my head when I'm talking to women, and it becomes more and more predominant in my mind, in the forefront of my mind, is that I'm dealing with a 14 to
a
18-year-old girl,
14-year-old girl. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. They talk about silly garbage and it's
And not only that, but if you think about it, the tone of their voice, the it's very childlike. Most women
yeah.
have a childish, a childlike voice. So when you hear a woman screaming for help, or they have this very childish quality about them, even though physically they don't look like a child. But it sets something off in you, I think, that uh, causes you to want to help, to want to take care of that child first. And with a man with a deeper voice, with the whole appearance going with it, they figure, well, that's uh, a tougher look, or a tougher thing, so it should be able to take it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that neoteny plays out in so many roles in life. When they have the round eyes, the round face, that's that perfect skin due to makeup. In their conversation, their voice, and everything. The neoteny takes over with men, and men want to help that situation, and it
Yeah,
just kind of boom. It's a mechanism almost that, and then you got to pull yourself away from that. For being a Mgtow, you go, no, 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 no. That I don't want to get into that. Uh,
yeah. I think John just made a video that I saw this morning. John, the other,
John, the other.
yeah, yeah. He made one which was pretty good about that natural instinctiveness that we do tend tend to run and flock to help a female, and that we sometimes don't even do it uh, like consciously. You
Consciously,
know,
right?
it's just like this natural base instinct. And I've told the story before of the girl that came up to me at the gas station from behind me. I didn't see what was going on or anything, and she says, "Excuse me," and everything, and she says, "Could you help me pick my motorcycle up?" Right? And I turn around, and her motorcycle's laying flat on the ground, about 20 feet away, and I. Without even thinking about it, I quit pumping the gas. I left the nozzle in the tank, walked back there, and whipped that puppy up on the kickstand for her. And then I got back to the bike and I thought, wait a minute here, what the hell did I just
What
do?
did you
You
just
know,
do? Yeah, yeah,
I
we
should
do
have
that.
told her. Now I did tell her, I says, here, this is how you pick one up, in case there's nobody around. I did give her an instructional course on how to properly pick up a motorcycle.
Yeah.
So, but whether that took hold, I doubt it. She probably thinks that any man around is going to do that for her. But if she wants to ride a bike like anybody else, you're going to have to learn how to do this shit. And then I got back to pumping my gas and I thought, God damn it. I got fooled again. And I know better. I know better. I should have told her, hey, you want to ride like a man? Pick it up like a man, right? But It just didn't occur to me at
It
the
just didn't occur to you. Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the
Women do
moment.
that in so much things in lives. And I know most of the guys have had experiences where they walk into the shop or wherever they're working and a woman says, "Hey, can you move those boxes for me?"
Yeah, and you just do it without
And
thinking. Like,
yeah, you just do it without thinking. And all of a sudden what we're doing is we're putting ourselves at risk. And you could have pulled a muscle in your back or, or could have fell over on your leg or you could have got burnt. I did see a girl get burned once by the muffler. The bike fell over and she didn't pull her leg off.
ooh, yeah.
And it fell down on her leg and get burnt. And then the guys ran over and there was the immediate shriek of pain, that special shriek
Oh,
women
yeah.
have. And it almost went through you, it's like, oh, and it resonates in you for a second, help, 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 scream. But yeah, we do those things, and it's just kind of natural. Mgtow helps with that a little bit because I don't really, I can kind of catch myself now a little bit.
Right.
I don't know if it's all the way or there's some
Well,
more.
here's the thing that goes through my mind a lot of times. And look, when my father-in-law was still alive, he rode too, and he was getting on in years.
Anybody
He
there?
was up. Pardon me?
Hey, John Galt is in now.
Oh, hey, John. How you doing? Uh, but when he rode, he was getting on in years, and his bike dropped over. We all went over to Daytona Beach one time, and of course I ran over to help him too. So this is something I would do for a man as well. Probably a lot quicker,
Yeah.
for a man.
Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
John, you want a sound test? You want to do a sound test? You got it, John?
I don't think he's saying anything. I mean, I heard him talk a couple times.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
here.
he's in the side chat. Hold on a minute.
Let's unplug your microphone and replug it in, or
Let's see if I can spell here. Working
yeah, he's got
your
to
end.
come in or back in.
Test.
There
Yeah,
you go.
we can hear you. Can you hear us? Hold on. I'm going to tell him that. We can hear you.
Yeah,
but
that happens sometimes when you can't hear us.
Can't hear us. Let's see here. Try coming in again. And again. Okay, now everybody knows what I typed, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Try coming in.
Yeah, I don't think they could see that on the. There is a system that we use where we talk to each other that we can see and people out there can't see. It's kind of funny.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've got what is it? Two chats going on, and three chats now because we got the low chat and the live
chat, and
so there are three things that you're trying to pay attention to. Plus, if you're trying to make any sense while talking, it's kind of hard to read everything, respond, and go through that. So sometimes when things look confusing, it's because we are indeed confused.
Yeah. We keep a page open on the G Plus, so if we have anything to say too, and it just kind of helps aids with communication. Lessons learned from the past, was that?
Yeah. That took quite a bit of discussion afterwards to try to get the logistics right.
Yeah. Sometimes this Google Plus coming in, it never picks up your mic. Oh, he might be muted on the top too. He has to unmute himself when you first come in.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's seeing no, because he came in the side chat, so we don't have the new Google Hangout format for the private Hangout. Remember, they changed that page, but the page that we're on right now still has the old format. So the live format is still the format that we had before.
Test.
There he goes.
We can hear you.
I can
John.
hear you.
He can't hear us.
He can't
Huh.
hear us. Maybe it's his. Does he have earphones or?
I don't know. Might be the
Or
way his computer's set up. I know we
yeah,
don't
I
have him
did it.
blocked. I mean, I don't have any control. So check your control room. I mean, I
Okay,
don't see.
let me
I
get
don't
you
see.
control. Okay, John. I'll turn John's microphone up, and then I'll give you some controls here. Share control. There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Uh,
John's on.
okay. Where did that go? Yeah, this um, kind
Yeah,
of weird.
yeah. Check your earphones if you're plugged into your to
Um,
your because once I came in and I had my earphones down and I was like, "Can you guys hear me? You guys?" And it was on my end. My earphones were turned off.
yeah. Sometimes the sound portion, of the control room for the computer, my computer area. You go into sounds and
Yeah,
my settings sometimes freak out and they go into a different port or a different something that I don't even have, so I got to reset it occasionally. But
yeah.
that okay, John, I can see he's trying to say something. John, can you hear us? No, I can't hear us.
No, I can't hear us yet.
It's
And sometimes
definitely
you
not in our control room, Joe. It's
right,
not
yeah,
there. I can see what's going on, and it's not us.
yeah. He
So
might have to restart his computer and get his audio settings and let Windows 8 or Windows whatever he's got re-pick up everything.
yeah, yeah. Well. All right. So anyway, well, until he figures it out, I guess we can't say anything to him.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So we got a few. I told you the story about my son this morning, huh?
Yeah, that was wild, but a good lesson. Tell the guys what happened, man. They'll get a chuckle out of it too. Not
Oh
to
yeah.
embarrass your son, but to show that that's actually a pretty damn good thing that happened.
Yeah, yeah, you can pick a bad situation and do the fatherly thing and be, real sensitive about it and just explain. Me and Warhorse were talking about my scooter the other day online and in the chat, and my son came in and he says, "Dad," he had a horrified look on his face, and he says, "Dad, the spaghetti exploded," and I was cooking spaghetti in the spaghetti cooker, the pressure cooker. It's 4 hour quick spaghetti. As we want to diminish time in those things. Uh, she says no. John says no. But my son, instead of relieving the pressure and turning down the heat, he opened it up and it exploded all over the kitchen. It was spaghetti. Reboot. Yeah, yeah. Reboot. Want to type in reboot for him?
He already did.
Okay.
He said no and then reboot. He left the group, so he's going to reboot, I imagine.
Yeah. So I got in there and I was horrified for a second that he got burnt because he took this. He actually, it's hard to do too. He's so strong. He just, you seen with the scooter the other day. He was kicking it. And
Yeah.
and I said, no, Dave, don't do this. And this is a good story with kids, 22, 23-year-old young men. They'll keep kicking something and thinking that's going to fix it when really we need to do other work. But he opened it up and it exploded all over the kitchen. And he was like, he was so hurt and like, oh God, there goes tonight's dinner. And so I took the opportunity to talk to him about the aerosol process and heat and how it pushes up and kind of give the mechanics of a pressure cooker and tell him what happened in there and reassure him that this is what's going to happen every single time and how to relieve it. And I gave him like a math lesson in aerosols. And after that, he was like, fine. He was like, and I know I could see how, if he would have did that with his mother would have yelled at him for 2 hours, and then he wouldn't have learned anything. And it would have became instead of a learning experience from a negational learning experience, women make it into a painful experience that shame is brought to them on. And
Yeah.
after all, we got some of the spaghetti back. There was about half a pot left, and ate, and we laughed about it, and he was much better off with that fatherly figure in his life than the mother just doing what a mother, freaking out, yelling, forcing him to clean the kitchen, grounding him for a week because he did something stupid. But he took I took lemons and made lemonade. And
yeah, and not only that, but in the future, he's not going to be afraid to get in the kitchen and do some of his own cooking, and know that there's going to be a mishap here and
yeah,
there. We've all had them. Holy shit! I mean, I've throughout my life, I've fucked up more food than you could shake a stick at.
Yeah, it
And
turned out.
but here he learned something. He's got a valuable lesson, one that he'll always remember. So the next time he makes spaghetti on his own or whatever he makes it, he'll always remember that, and it'll probably bring a good story if he's around a group of friends or whatever, and let me tell you, when I was a kid, man, I blew up the spaghetti, and it'll be something that'll always be with him throughout life that he'll remember. And it's a positive thing. It's not a thing now where he says, you know what? I got yelled at. I got shamed. I'm such an idiot, and I should just stay out of the kitchen. That's what happens,
That's what happens, and then men start, telling themselves that women are better cooks because, they had one mishap or the misfortune, and then women kind of dig on that and they play on them things. Don't go in the kitchen; you'll just screw it up. But no, men are better cooks. Actually, I think most men.
I believe they are. I mean, look at all the top chefs. They are all men. And I cook a lot better than women do. I mean, granted, my wife used to make some dishes that I still don't know how to make properly. But if I applied myself, I could probably make them. I'd probably screw it up the first time and learn by it. Just like when I made the homemade bread for Thanksgiving, the first loaf I made, I made a brick, and I just ruined the dough and everything. And by that time, now I got the drift of it, and the second loaf came out perfect. So, but the thing is, I wasn't scared to do it, and I've always gone to trying different things. And if you get put in your place, so to speak, or shamed,
Right.
This adventure of learning new things or trying different things, even if you fail, that is something that you can't replace. And if you take that adventurous spirit out of a man, they become useless to themselves in life.
Useless to themselves in life. You're getting cheated out of that experience and that information that you learn in the kitchen. And women, oh God, so many of them don't want us around because it's one thing they can grab hold of and say, yeah, we're just better. And they're really not. And they warp them situations when you're a child. I mean, how many times when you're a child did you get the spoon across your ass because you were in the kitchen, because you wanted a glass of water merely or something like that,
Oh yeah.
Oh God, yeah. So he learned, he learned, and it's a good situation. And the scooter thing was good because I had to kind of grab him at one point, and the kicker was stripped, and then we got it back on, and then he wanted to start it up, and he's 50, 60 kicks, and it's like no, that scooter is not going to start until we do something else.
Right.
And then but he's he's bull strong. God, he everything I have to go after him and say Dave, don't pull that so hard, you're going to bust it.
Yeah. Well, that takes experience, and you don't get that experience if you don't do it, and you don't learn anything by not doing. So yeah, you have to break a few eggs to make the omelet, the proverbial saying. Which is look, when I got my first car, of course I was already playing around with dirt bikes, mini bikes, and I thought I was pretty hot shit young punk ass mechanic, that I really wasn't
Still
that
nothing?
good.
Hello, John. Can you hear us now?
John? Damn.
I don't think he can hear us still.
No.
It's got to be the headset or.
Yeah, it's got to be on his end because we're obviously live. so he could at least hear that end of it. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with John. Jeez.
Okay, I wish I could. It's probably something really silly like I did. Hello, teacher. Do we have a teacher I'm bound in?
Hey, Matt.
Hey.
Hey, okay, I'm in the lower chat there, so I'm not watching what's going on here. How you doing, Teach?
Just fine, Warhorse. How nice to talk to you, man.
Yeah, finally, huh? After all this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about children and learning experiences, the difference between a father's parental love and explaining things and a mother's rage sometimes. And I gave a few stories about cooking, and we are getting into our my scooter project and stuff like that, and just kind of, the importance of the manly figure and the calmness of a man in the household.
Yeah. Thanks for telling that story about your son. That was great. Yeah. My mom's favorite discipline tool was the wooden coat hanger. Remember that one, Warhorse?
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I got the wooden cooking spoon.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a stepdad rather than a dad. My dad passed away before, so he was. I think stepdads are kind of very inhibited about doing a discipline. So it seemed to fall to my mom to do that.
Okay, yeah, yeah. There's a calming figure about a mature male that
Yeah.
can work through these. We get these situations in life, and especially in family situations where it just gets all crazy and bizarre, and the males most of the time has to just calm and look, logically through it and do the reasoning thing, and take lemons and turn them to lemonade like I did. Explain the science of the crock pot or the cooking instrument and how it works, and you can go into electricity and stuff like that, but that's going far. But we do these things, and naturally, and they become positive learning experiences rather than negative learning experiences that come with pain. And you relieve the pain and tension of the situation while we're doing it.
Joe, that's why that story is so good. That pressure cooker is like a metaphor for what you just said.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of, I've seen nothing makes me, nothing gets me excited, it seems like, anymore. Nothing makes me rage or, it just, I just step back, and that's the hardest thing for men to do when we're 18 to when we're 30, sometimes just stepping back and looking at the situation, the reality of the situation, and just applying a fix to it. Uh, I think that has to do with the way the male brain works. What do you think?
I think being young, having all that, I don't know if it's testosterone, adrenaline, or whatever. And, I've been taking this course. I think I shared that with you,
Yeah.
Joe, that course at Stanton about evolutionary biology. And with Dr. Sapolsky, a great lecture. And, there are a lot of reasons why this happens. But, in my case, I was extremely aggressive throughout my 20s,
Oh,
uh, and it took 0 point nothing to get, they have that old adage, fight at the drop of a hat. The hat generally never hit the floor with me. I mean, it took nothing to get me going and go completely crazy. And then throughout my 30s, things really kind of, I started thinking about things instead of just letting my emotions drag me into it, uh, and of course now at my age, I mean, geez, even if I did get pissed off, there's not a hell of a lot I can do standing toe to toe with anybody. So,
oh, right, yeah.
I mean, I guess that's why we have guns and knives. I don't know, but yeah, I think in youth, you do, especially if you've got a fairly good build, and you're strong enough and everything else. That's your go-to way of dealing with things.
Yeah. Hey, teacher, do you have I know you teach a grade school. Can you actually see the difference in boys and when they bust things? They're like bulls. They're trying to figure things out, and the girls are kind of they approach things differently.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me start with this though. That my first Catholic school teaching job. It was like back in 2008, and so I was meeting all the parents. It was back to school night, and I was the only male teacher on the staff. This was a K-8 school, right?
Okay.
And there was one guy in the computer lab that's kind of a part-timer, but I was the only. I was 8th grade. You know, I'm up on the stage with every morning for assembly, very high profile. And it's like meet the teacher night, and I can't tell you, just parent after parent, mostly women actually, said, "Wow, it's nice to have a man in here. I'm so glad we have a man here." You know, I mean, even women are relieved to have this man around because they realize it presents an important point of view and in fact, it's sort of a calmness to campus. That really struck me when I first started working for them. But yeah, boys and girls. But see, that's the problem, Joe. The system's made for girls. You see,
The system's made for girls.
I see nothing wrong with the stand and deliver type teacher, where the teacher's in the front and you're taking notes and you get a test and you drill and practice. I see nothing wrong with that system. What's wrong is that the lessons that are now done, you know, it's all the teachers, you know, it's all, you know, sit in your seat, sit still, boys, for a long time, you know.
Oh yeah, sit still.
And you know, boys can do that, but it's just not working with the kind of lessons where they want you to do cooperative groups and inclusion and there's all kinds of social messages, and I find it impossible. I had a couple of good woman principals. Most of them were men, but this last one I had was the only incompetent principal I've ever had, and I'm telling you, it was just like this guy said, Misanthropic said a couple of weeks ago. He was talking to his teacher. This guy's drowning in estrogen, and it's true. They are.
Yeah, there's different ways to teach boys, and I always liked there was a math teacher, and he was a gym teacher, and when you get into gym and you start doing the baseball, you know, he would explain the baseball stats, and then, oh yeah, that's algebra. And then the boys would have a real life situation where they can apply math to real life. And he tried to teach the girls too, but sometimes they don't understand. And we were pretty much at that point. There was no. The girls were on one side of the gym and the boys were on the other side of the gym, and you couldn't cross that line, or else you get a detention. But that was a good way to teach boys. You know, we got the run, jump, football stats, baseball stats. You know, weightlifting, you know, you go up into that weightlifting area, and then you can learn so much from that weightlifting area.
Oh, well, that is exactly right. I mean, look at Warhorse. I bet you must have learned a ton of math doing mechanics. I know that's where I learned a lot of math. I was working on my car when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, you know. Plus, I was a machinist, an engine building machinist.
And measurements, everything. Measurements, the way to geometry.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, during school, I really sucked at math, because I found it very uninteresting until I started doing the mechanical work. And when I started getting into the machining end of it, then the interest peaked so quickly and so fast that my learning curve was so short, you know, because it was something that I was now interested in for a good reason. And yeah, I had to use a lot of it. You know, it's something that comes through. And, you know, it's funny, you mentioned the Catholic school, and I went to Catholic school, too, in grade school. And I remember we had one male teacher there, Mr. Chapman, I'll never forget him, bald-haired guy, and he didn't put up with any shit in the classroom. And, of course, it was me and two other guys. We always sat in the back of the room, and we always messed around. I mean, you know, we were always the jokers and the talkers and everything else. And I remember Mr. Chapman, this guy could throw an eraser, a chalkboard eraser, and nail you within a millimeter of where he wanted to put it. And it usually hit you right in the side of the head because you had your head turned talking or something. And, you know, the white powder from the chalk and everything would explode on your head, scare the hell out of you. But he was a fair guy, and, you know, he took a bunch of us. Actually, he took the three of us, the troublemakers, if you will, one night, and he says, you know, he wanted to take us out for pizza. And we all piled into his Carmen Ghia, and I don't know if all of you remember what the Carmen Ghia was. It was a small car, right? And now here's this grown man with 3 young boys, and we were probably around 10, I think. And he took us out to Alums, you know, down in Southeast Florida. We had pizza, you know, we had, you know, I mean, it was fantastic. We loved the guy, even though he was very stern, very, you knew what you could get away with in his room. You know, on the other hand, the nuns, the penguins, they were horrendous. You know, they were just mean and nasty, you know, and of course they treated the girls a lot different than the boys. And Mr. Chapman, I remember, he put an eraser upside one girl's head too, doing the same thing. So he didn't care. And, you know, to this day, I'll never forget him. I had a lot of respect for that man. I looked up to him. The rest of them, everybody else in that school, including the priests, I had absolutely no respect for.
Yeah. I had a lot of trouble with the staff in the school. I worked there for 7 years, and I got you on that. Like, it's like if I do discipline now, I am really strict, right? However, you can only use your voice now, and and parents are very, very defensive. So it's almost not worth calling the kid out, because the parent's going to defend the kid. The principal would say, well, she's a mother bear. You know, you just don't mess with the mother bear. So that kind of stuff has really changed now. But could I add this, that as a science and math teacher, I always took the opportunities whenever I could, and there were quite a few of them, to do labs. Like in math, I would do a measurement lab. Okay, and I had all the great measurement tools. You know, the feet and meters. I had one that was 100 meters long, and I had lots of measuring devices. So that's whenever I taught math, whenever I could, I would get out and teach math like that. But the curriculum is very tight now. This Common Core thing, they want you to do A, B, C, D. You got to cover all these bases. So it's the same thing in science. I had a beautiful science lab, so I used that as much as possible. We did the 2-liter water rockets. They were taking all kinds of measurements and statistics. And yeah, sometimes the kids are just sitting around waiting for their turn. But those kind of lessons were just great. And sorry the nuns were so mean to you. They're war horse. So the nuns in my school were all Dominican nuns. You know, the black and white habits and stuff. And
okay.
Like what's black and white and black and white and black and white? That's a nun rolling downhill.
Yeah.
Or what's black and white and red all over? That's a sunburned nun. You know, so we made fun of them, but you're right. Some of them couldn't teach boys at all with the darn. Really couldn't.
Well, see, the thing was that back then, and we had the penguin nuns too. You know, the black and white penguins, we called them, and they were mostly Polish. And here I was a kid from Germany, you know, not being able to speak very good English when I came over, and they had a hatred for me to start with, you know. So a lot of it was from that old ruler hitting and locking me, you know, in a closet. And I know they locked other boys up in a closet too, you know, for hours on end. These were mentally deficient, or not mentally deficient, but character deficient people. You know,
they were character deficient. Yeah,
it was awful with them. And the priests, of course, they were all Irish, ex-boxers, you know, and drunkards and stuff like that. So they were pretty brutal. And you know, well, there was one priest there. He was pretty good, but I heard later on. You know, much later, once I was a man in my late 20s, that they did convict him of pedophilia. Now, I never saw that or anything like that, but I know from the guy or the kids I went to school with, we kind of kept in touch over the years. And, you know, one of them was very religious, his whole family was, so they continued going to that church where the school was. And so I don't doubt that they did hit him, but you know, that was the whole thing back then. And I understand, you know, of course things have changed now. How dare you touch my little darling who can do no wrong? You're just there to babysit that kid all day. You know, this wasn't the case back when we were younger.
Yeah. Is there a disconnect between applied technology and math and science and writing in the schools? Uh, there is an they call it applied technologies for a reason because it applies to our everyday living after we leave school. We have to go work in shops and stuff like that where the practical application of math and is required. And if they don't get that jump, that leap of logic and its secondary thinking uh, between the math and the applied technology, then kids will be lost in this kind of world. I use this a lot in on my threads. Prepositional logic and writing is just math, and I see a lot of the younger kids are a little bit lost with that idea that when you write, it's just math. It's a noun, verb to noun, then you got your predicate, and that relates to your P, and then that relates to your Q. If you got a P to Q thinking, and then that would fall to a true, and it's a truth table and stuff like that. And you can start working out these truth tables in your head. Uh, and I know that's sort of at college level and stuff like that, but at a certain point in life, you have to start working those things out in your head, what is true and what is not true. And women fail terribly at these they always use false equivocations or feelings, which doesn't work out to the predicate logic of it, and which is Bowling, goes back to George Bowling, and uh, it's just adding it up in your head, what is true, what is not true, and what is false, and what is not false, and then it works out better, and your writing becomes better, your logic becomes better, and in the shop generally, yeah, you're going to have to any woodworking project or anything, you're going to have to know that math. And
Well, aren't I think most men are more I think the right term is spatial. In other words, if we're doing something where we can see what we're doing, what we're actually working on, and then apply the mathematics to it or the words or whatever it is that you're doing. It's not a nebulous thing at that point.
no,
Where I
no.
think women are better with the idea of a fantasy, whereas a man is more grounded in the reality of the doing and seeing that what it is you're doing, how it applies, how it all goes together, and then you understand it. If you just put this on paper a lot of times, the mind, or with me, I had trouble figuring out what this was all related to. All these numbers, all these figures. Yeah, I ended up with a correct answer, but what does it mean? It didn't give me any tangible end result. Therefore, that's why I said when I got into the machining end of it, I could
Boom.
see where
Yeah.
my figures all worked out into, oh, now we achieved this piece of steel at this thickness and this distance and what have you, out around, radial round, and all this. So I think we take better, although I loved reading when I was a child. I couldn't get enough of reading. But the mathematics of it, I needed that reality in front of me, more so than just the numbers on a piece of paper, which had no meaning to me.
Yeah, yeah, it's applied, and it's a good thing when we have to rearrange an educational system that's suited for boys. I think even if we have to separate them again. When I was younger, uh, there was a certain amount of boys' schools around, and they kind of got the name for being a boys' school because that's where boys that really didn't work out or were smarter went to. In the judgment call on smarter was usually what we're talking about. They applied the technology to their living, and they caught on, and so they went to the better school, or the, what do they call those schools now? Um, uh, I can't even remember what the word they use for them. It's just a higher level of college prep course schools, and a lot
Yeah,
of
their
boys.
preparatory school is what they used to be called.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we had one up in Cleveland called Aviation High, which was right on the airport, and that's where the boys went to learn about aircrafts and work their way into NASA and stuff like that. But that's gone now because it's a bland system and you're including feelings with the girls and these inflections and stuff like that, which sometimes aren't real, and they tend to leave people with a delusion about what's really happening in their life because like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but it's a delusionary state where they think something's real and feelings are real, and they're going to actually feelings are never going to move a stone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say, did you ever see one of those blue nuns when you were younger? Remember the helmet, the hats that kind of floated out like the bird hat?
Oh, like the Flying Nun? No.
Yeah,
No, I
the
never saw
flying
any of
nun.
them.
You never saw any of those? How about you, teacher? Did you ever
No.
meet any of those ones?
Well, there was a really nice bottle of wine called Blue Nun I used to buy all the time. But
Oh yeah, blue nun's good. That's a German wine, isn't it?
yeah, that's right. Hey, can I add, Joe, one thing about the disconnect?
Yeah.
I taught at a public junior high school for 20 years, a gigantic one. Okay.
Okay.
And like almost 2,000 kids, and there's no shop class in there. Shop class is gone now at the junior high level.
Yeah.
And there's and I'm telling you what, it's just discrimination against boys. It's because boys are good at it, and this sensitivity, like okay, you take out home ec because we don't want women to think they have to live in the kitchen anymore, but then you take out the boys just to be fair. That's ridiculous. It's unfair, and these people that are writing curriculum now would just deny this up and down. They just have all the answers of what's best for everybody. And I'll tell you what, I believe completely in separatism. My dream school would be all boys, and all the staff would be men, from teacher down to the janitor.
Yeah.
And we could have a sister school where we visit and have dances and stuff. Learn some manners. But I took every opportunity in math and science to get out of the room and do measurement labs and do the hands-on stuff.
Yeah, we see in schools a lot now. They use the silver bullet a lot of funding, and then they start cutting back.
Correct.
First thing that goes is they start cutting back the sports programs for boys, the wood shop, the metal shop, and then
Exactly right.
at the end they'll cut back on the home ec shop. The thing that women, and then they'll say, well, we had to cut back, but they cut 4 programs for boys and a sort of a half program because you didn't get a credit for home ec, I don't think. A half a program for girls, and then they used that as okay, yeah, we did, this was fair and equal, but really there was nothing fair and equal about it. What they're simply doing is chaining boys to chairs and making them read. Helen Steiner.
Well, I think what they should do, I mean, besides bringing like all boys school back, that would be a great thing. But combining math, science, and machine shop, into one type of thing, not exclusively, but trying to bring all of this information in on it to make the learning experience more of a real thing, of a real life thing where you can see it happening. And also, in an all-boys school, I think home ec should be part of the curriculum too.
Oh yeah, home ec's great, a learning experience if it's applied. Who's the science guy that teaches cooking on TV?
I don't know that one.
Yeah.
I don't either.
He was the science guy. He goes by the name of the science guy, and then he moved into specialty.
Bill Nye?
Bill Nye, the science guy. Yeah, now he does a cooking show. Yeah,
he does. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah,
I know Bill Nye.
Then he explains the science of cooking. I really love that show. I think that was quite a few years ago too, and it may be gone now. But that was a great application where men thought like men in the kitchen.
Yeah, well, not only that, but also if they learn how to cook and make certain things that they enjoy to eat, they're not going to feel like they need this mommy figure woman in their life later on to, why are you getting married? A lot of men will tell you, well, she's good in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Or she's good in the sack and everything. All right, well, we're not going to have courses on what's going to replace somebody in the sack, but when it takes nobody in the kitchen, there goes that part of the equation. Now you don't need anybody doing this for you. Plus, this is one thing I think every guy should go through at least basic training in the military to learn how to do their damn laundry, how to do their own, make their own bed. Some of the simplest things that need to be done in life, like
teach
cooking for yourself, how to clean. I mean, basic training will tell you how to clean. That's one thing you learn very quickly.
Right.
And how to prepare your day, how to learn to manipulate certain things, because it is a matter of survival when you're in basic training. They basically try to kill you, for a little while. And so all these things come in very handy in everyday real life. And if you are not needy and feel that you have to have somebody in your life to take care of poor little helpless you understand that you don't have to put up with this crap of nowadays, especially, with what women are dishing out. And the problem is that women can't do this crap either, and very few of them do. I look at women's cars, the inside of cars, when I worked professionally. What a mess. I mean, pigsties rolling around on four wheels. I had one car, a Volvo. I got in it. Florida summertime, heat, right? Windows were up in the parking lot. I got knocked over by the smell of baby shit in this car, right? And I had to do interior work. I was doing an evaporator for the air conditioning, which meant going up into the dash, working in the car. And I'm like, man, this smell, I can't work in this goddamn thing. So I got something to spray in there, and it wouldn't go away. Finally, I started looking under the seat. I found 8 diapers, used diapers, crushed up under the seats. God. Come on. What kind of a mother? What kind of a person is this, But this, really? You want this living in your house? This is some that sticks used diapers, 8 of them, and under a car seat, and they weren't fresh. Unbelievable. So I think, men nowadays, or young men, should be going through this. Unfortunately, you can't just enlist and go through basic. I think the shortest you can go in for is probably 3 years, maybe 4 now. I don't know. I haven't kept up on it, but
yeah, you can get a reserved for after you learn your AIT and everything, go to the reserves. But then nowadays there's so much war that it's just you're automatically
you're called up.
You're called up. Like you go back, see your parents or see your family for a day, and then all of a sudden the next Wednesday you're called back up, and then you got to go live on the base.
Well, I've heard that basic training, they can't touch you anymore. The TIs, when I was in, they would poke you and punch you and smack you around.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't give a shit. They were training you to go and fight, and if you couldn't take that little bit of abuse, well, you were of no use to them. So nowadays they gotta be careful. Be careful about how they even talk to you in basic training. So I don't even know if that's applicable anymore. I think we pussified everything, or feminized it, to where, man, we're in deep trouble,
We are in deep trouble. John didn't get his mic going yet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys too.
All right, it's finally working. Join in, John. Hello.
Okay, let me introduce John Galt and let John take it for a minute.
Well, I've actually been sitting here listening to you guys about the education system. I've been listening to Warhorse talking about developmental programs such as military, that sort of stuff. And it kind of takes me back to a single issue, which is masculinity.
Yeah.
And I'll say this about masculinity. And I think it's pertinent to the Mgtow movement, and I think it's going to become pertinent as to how boys, men, males go forward in the future. And I think part of it is that we should be recognizing that masculinity is like a brand or a franchise. It's not really in us, it's put in us. It's outside there, it's owned by society. They define what it is. They place their demands on it, and then they use whatever system of coercion or manipulation or influence they feel is pertinent to deliver that system in such a way that you embody it, that you embrace it, and that you follow it.
Yeah, and I agree, John. You know, and this kind of brings me to the military too, and veterans. And I don't want, and I'm not going to get political here or anything, but you know, they get guys into the military, they teach them how to kill, they put them in a war zone where there's, you know, killing going on, almost anything goes, and then when they stick you back out into society, they want you to be very calm, meek, you know, acceptable of everything, be very, you know, this kind of a mind fuck, if you, for the lack of a better word, is what they expect out of men anymore. You know, go
Absolutely.
and kill for us. Go off the deep end. Be an animal, okay? When we tell you to be an animal, and then come back here and be this nice little fluffy puppy dog in society.
Well, to be honest with you, Warhorse, I think what they should be doing is when you've gone through your basic training and you've learned how to operate in a theater, when you're decommissioned, you should come back and then be put through a secondary training process.
Yeah, deprogramming. I had a deprogramming course, and you know what it consisted of? Like one day they tell me that when I got back, don't kick the dog and don't beat the wife.
I didn't even get that. I just got my honorable discharge. Here you go. Bye.
Have a nice life.
Boot out the door, man. There's the gate. You know.
Yeah, and that's in all honesty, you know, if you were to think about it, if they had like, I don't know what basic training is. What is it, like 12 weeks or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is anymore. It slowly tapered down from the 18 weeks to 16 weeks or something like that, and then it tapered down from that to your AIT training.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it depends on what branch of service you're in. The Air Force, when I went through, was I believe 6 or 7 weeks. That was it for the Air Force back then.
But these guys coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever it is that they're stationed, they should be coming back to a retraining process. They shouldn't be coming back, getting off of an airplane or a boat or anything else and released into the community. They should go back to a base and be reprogrammed and retrained to be released into the community.
Yeah.
And if it's 12 weeks training going in, it should be 12 weeks training going out, or depending on the theater that you're serving in.
Well, I'll tell you what, it takes a lot to get over shooting at people and killing people, and then reassimilating into normal, quote unquote, society. So
I don't disagree with that, but think about this for a second, Warhorse. You're trained as a group to go in, but you're not trained as a group to come out, which means you're left on your own. Yeah. You go into the community, and all of your experience is personal, private, and basically nobody wants to hear about it, or that's the impression that you're left. But if you're trained out of it, and and that takes place in the group of other men who are coming out of the same theater, you actually have an opportunity to sort of support each other through the process the same way that you're supported into the process.
Very true, very true. Good point.
And these guys are coming out with the similar or same experience.
Yeah.
And doing it by yourself, you're being fucking damaged, bottom line.
Yeah, I see with these, it's especially noticeable with the reserve units. These men signed up for a certain program in a reserve unit. They got their training, they did the AIT, then they went back home and then showed up on the weekends or a Wednesday, Thursday weekend, whatever you can get out of it. But then they're called up for 6 months. They put them in the theater, and then it's back to that home thing. Within a day, you are back there sitting listening to people in a family situation that have no idea. And then it happen again, it'll happen again, or it'll happen for a month period. If any tensions or that threat level goes above an orange or a yellow, I don't know what they use now, all of a sudden for a month you're back there, and then flown back, and then dropped back into this social situation at work where you're not allowed because you've signed you've signed that paper saying you weren't going to talk about anything that happened, and you're not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to do anything about it. It's just, okay, I'm back at work, and I'm looking at these people that have no idea what's going on in the hostile world or the real world, and you perceive it as the real world.
It's a lonely feeling because everybody around you hasn't had a similar experience,
Right.
And not only that, but your heightened alertness and threat level that the perceived threat level, that you were so conditioned to, because when it comes down to a life and death matter, your body does adjust to that.
Yep.
Everything that you notice around you, whether it's movements of people, is taken in a whole different context than what normal people see it as.
Well, it's like a hypersensitivity.
Correct, it is. And you are always on alert. And that even at nighttime is hard to get over. I mean, you do kind of decompress at the end of the day to a certain degree, but every little noise that you hear, everything is a imminent life or death threat situation. And how do you relate that to people if you're going to the office or you're going to the shop or whatever the case may be, that this is what you're going through? And they see your actions sometimes as being way overblown, or too masculine aggressiveness, and that's not the case all the time. This is something.
There's an interesting side to that also, Warhorse, and that is, when you're in your unit and you're surrounded by guys with the similar or same training, you're not so hypersensitive because you know that distress and sensitivity is shared by the men in your group. When you leave that group, you become unconsciously aware that you're the only one that's sensitive.
Yeah.
And it's almost like where others would have been watching your back, nobody's watching your back. So it actually places you into a even more hypersensitive psychology.
Well, it was a little different with me. I really wasn't part of a platoon or a group, a flight in the Air Force. That I worked with a group of people. I was a AP, or basically an air police MP type, for the Air Force, and so it was a lot of going out there by yourself and dealing with situations. So you were always in a state of high alert because you couldn't rely on anybody else. Of course, you could always call people in if need be, and you had that kind of in the back of your head that, I've got a little bit of backup here. I'm not completely all alone.
Right.
But it does differ to guys that are in a combat unit, where you have 20 guys or 40 guys or 50, whatever it may be, where you feel a lot more protected just by the surroundings. So you do let your guard down at that point. But after years of being on high alert all the time, you just don't give it up. And that's why I said earlier on that, when I was in my 20s, after I got out of the military, I would fight at the drop of a hat. It didn't take me much to act at all. Whereas most guys did a lot of talking, they did a lot of yelling at each other, before any fisticuffs flew. For me, it was punch first and talk later. So, unfortunately, that was conditioned into me. I wasn't
But because of that conditioning, it doesn't make your behavior necessarily wrong, because of that conditioning, you know where potential violence is going, and throwing the first punch just stops it.
Right. See, I never thought anything was wrong with it, but of course the police disagreed with me quite a bit. So
unless they were throwing the punches.
Right. Yeah, I see a lot of situations in life nowadays where the police are actually more aggressive with men of a perceived age that have a certain look to them, like a military look. They're automatically more aggressive with those men, knowing that a lot of these men now are coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq and all those places where they may have been stationed, and even other places now. It's from as far as down to Somalia and wherever they landed. Uh, the police have a real misunderstanding of how to treat these guys, and they automatically go to the aggression point with them.
Yeah, but that depends too. I notice a lot of police are ex-military.
Yeah, yeah, they're hiring them, trying to supplement the job programs with police programs and law enforcement programs and anything they perceive as masculine, and that goes as far down as electrical inspectors and stuff like that. They have these 30-day courses where they get these guys. So there are some programs that men can take advantage of now. Fast track engineering courses and fast track, what do you call those, building inspector courses that they try to get them into. But that's just a cloak, a mask for getting them productive back into society. And there's this real female misunderstanding with getting a man emotionally set in society and having him being productive. They misinterpret them being productive as socially set.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not.
Yeah.
And they're not. They can go on these jobs where they're dealing with people, and then all of a sudden, the slightest thing can remind them of a situation or a trigger or something like that, and then all of a sudden they're I know how hard it is for me to get out of that. Sometimes it was a process that took a long time, and then you just got to work through it, and then you seem like you're doing something wrong then by trying to work through it, or go out, smoke a cigarette, pace a little bit, shake it off, and go back to what you're trying to do, and do that technical work that's so stressful to you. And men have stressful work, don't they? The difference between sitting behind a computer and doing lighter than air work is much different than sitting in front of a 70-ton massive heat treater and having the responsibility of getting that running, and the company stops losing $40,000 an hour.
Well, this is I think where the aggression comes from, because after going through an experience like that, for a lot of men, your bullshit threshold is so low that you just blow up, and your patience wanes at a drop of a hat, and they say, well, see there, that's how men act, but, well, what did they expect? This is what they trained the men for. This is what they had them do when it suited their purpose, and now you call it out as bad behavior. Well, you know what? Up yours.
Yeah, that's a convenient.
That's what I say.
Yeah, that's a convenient excuse, isn't it, for them? Not knowing and being ignorant of all the problems. They pull out, they cherry pick the convenient excuse, which is, all you men are just aggressive, instead of trying to understand that there's some the symptoms behind that, and there's some things. And I think if law enforcement, social workers, all those lighter than air jobs that are supposed to be well qualified and trained, they should have a sensitivity training. We hear this on their end, that men should be more sensitive and have a sensitivity training, but there's no sensitivity training coming from the other end. It's all just man up.
Well, it's actually, and the man up thing is just it's a crock of shit, and it's bullshit, because the common language should not be the default to go to, well, this is how men act. No, this is how people under certain forms of distress act.
Yeah. There's no real.
It's not that difficult to actually remove the genders from that term, because any woman, you put her under a certain level of distress, they're going to respond in a similar fashion. They may not default immediately to violence, but they may default to screaming and yelling and temper tantrums.
Yeah, how misunderstood this is in our society, and I don't know if it's the same about in your areas and everything. The biggest scam around my area is putting up one of those help military veterans signs, and the scam artists have figured out that they can go to any store or any meeting area or any mall and just get a sign that says "Help the military veterans come in and make money that way." And if they write their program right, 80–90% of that money goes to them, and a lighter than air, what I perceive as a lighter than air paper pushy job, which none of the money or none of the benefits or no real programs go out to the veterans. And I look at that, and that's the biggest scam in my area now, where they're just collecting money because you know what? Because we don't have a real program. We got 44,000 gynocentric programs that run in our areas and in our communities and broadly through the United States. And how many of those are male programs? None. How many of those are veteran programs? None. They're finally realizing that men, if they want men to reassimilate and move. And we look at the homeless stats. 70% of the homeless are veterans, and it's crazy. It's crazy logic that they don't see that. Okay, if you have 44,000 female programs, let's just cut that in half. Have 22,000 female programs or gynocentric programs, and have 22,000 male programs, and let's split this money inequality down the middle, where the men in our society, the builders, the actual builders and doers, are gonna be capable of doing what they do without all the stresses and not having to deal with all those stressors with no support. But no, our government keeps this guy, and they do it purposely.
Well, look what they just they spent $348,000 on a study how to make technology, computers or whatever, more female friendly. I was watching that this morning. And they spent another $350,000 on information to put it out there to get people to start, I don't know, making I think Turd Flinging Monkey might have been the one that made the video.
Yeah,
and, he made mention of they're going to shape the laptop like a vagina, to make them feel more comfortable with this technology. And this is what the government is spending our money on. Fuck the veterans. They can all go and piss off and live on a park bench, This is what's happening with our government. It's incredible how little they even consider that any man could possibly suffer. I mean, we are put out in the rain, tied up with a chain like a bad dog. I mean, worse than a bad dog. At least somebody else might care about the dog. But when it comes to a man, you're just garbage, and they don't want to look at you. Oh, look at this homeless guy. He's all dirty and nasty. Get him off the sidewalk. I don't want to see him, I mean, this is our society that we live in. But women, a woman on the sidewalk homeless, people be handing her money, offering a place to live or whatever. There's something wrong here. Very, very wrong.
Yeah, the ergonomic keyboard. You remember the 80s with the ergonomic keyboard and the arguments about the ergonomic keyboard, and that was basically 100% pointed at women, to make women's job of what used to be key punch operators and stuff like that simpler, less stressful on them. And then here we are back, 40 years later, talking about how to make it even more simpler and make a vagina-shaped keyboard so it makes them more comfortable.
Right.
I was like, oh God.
But they'll want us men to do it.
Yeah, they want the men to do it for them. And that keyboard should be shaped in the sign of a stop sign. Yeah, a yellow stop sign with the word no on it. And no, we're just not going to do this anymore. Should be a little Mgtow key on it. That's the ergonomic keyboard, a Mgtow key that puts up a no on your screen.
Yeah, if a painted fingernail hits it, the keyboard blows up.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, I think as Mgtows, the way that we deal with this is try to educate men and educate younger men, males, boys, that they're at risk when it comes to accepting anyone else's version of masculinity other than their own. Because I think what we do as Mgtow is we try to inform guys that different forms of social applications boil down to the kind of masculinity in which you fit yourself into. And rather than, and you know, if you're not aware of what the potential outcome is going to be, you're not fitting into a masculinity that might be self-supportive. And you know, this military shit, to be perfectly honest with you, I mean, I abhor the military. I don't think it's done right. I think it's just a meat grinder for men.
Yeah, it is.
And if men stood back and said, well, wait a minute, I'm not willing to accept this under these conditions, and they have to change. I mean, fundamentally, that's what women did in the military. They said, fuck you, we're not doing it that way.
Yeah. How many, do you run in, I run into this a lot in my life now, and all three of us. Teacher, were you in the military at all? Or?
No, I'm afraid I was raised very differently by a radical feminist peacenik war protester.
Okay. But the advice that I give to boys now is don't join the military.
That's what I say too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Do that too,
Not
John?
anymore.
I have a son, and he reached a point where he was considering joining the military, and it took me a lot of political conversations to try and get him to understand that he's not serving his own benefit, he's serving everyone else's, and that's never going to be helpful to him or his life or the outcome of it, or his own well-being or his own fulfillment or his own peace of mind.
Yeah, we're talking about I'm patriotic, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are patriotic, and you have your pride in our country and everything. We're talking about guys here that would give that advice and be patriotic. It's sort of a cognitive dissonance, and it's a cognitive dissonance based on rationality, Mgtow rationality, that I could say to a boy now, don't join the military. I want you. You know what I'd really like to see? I'd really like to see boys go take a technical course in like auto mechanics or machining, and then go to college first.
Well, on the issue of patriotism, to have a nation at all, you need to have people that occupy that nation. And for those who are going to go off to get their brains blown out, all they're doing is they're being unpatriotic by slaughtering the people that should be inhabiting that nation.
Yeah, they're being very on-pad, but they turn it. Society turns it to that civil religion of flag waving and identity politics, and
that's what I was saying earlier. Is society tries to impose their definition of masculinity, and what I keep saying is, fuck your definition of masculinity. If you like it so much, wear it yourself.
Yeah, they can do that. They, step up. Do that if they think it's. But these people that are telling and I hate to use the weasel word of these people and those people, but we don't have an identification of the social structures and the people that involve themselves in the social structures to properly identify them. So I'm sorry about using the weasel words, but those people, they want others to do the job for them.
That's right.
And they want men to do the job for them. And they want to manipulate and utilize men to do the job for them. And then, after the job's done, they don't give a shit.
Well, not only that, but we used to have, I mean, World War II, we had a clear-cut enemy, a clear-cut threat to a way of life. And then I think that kind of got lost in Korea and Vietnam, definitely. And now I think what we're fighting for is, or what, they try to tell you, it's for God and country and all this garbage, right? The flag-waving thing. You're patriotic. You're fighting for the freedom of your own country, which we're not. We're fighting for corporations and money and greed.
We did the same thing in World War II and in World War I.
Well, I don't doubt it, but there we had, we had the Japanese Empire and we had Hitler, which I think we're all aware of. That was a clear and common threat. And yes, every war is going to be profiteered. I mean, there's no doubt about that. That will never end. And I think that's been going on since the beginning of wars, that people have profiteered off of war. But it's never become so apparent as it is now.
Well, I think the only difference between World War II the Vietnam War, Korea, and the bullshit going on over in the Middle East is they're losing control over the narrative. See, in World War II, you go back through history, what you're going to discover is that the fucking fascists were actually financed by Wall Street.
Oh yeah. I know. I mean,
But at the time,
even the
nobody
Catholic Church was behind Hitler, right? I mean, you know,
But
everybody's.
that's come out after the fact. Well, the now what's happening is the narrative is not being controlled so much. So the information is coming out sooner, and it's affecting public opinion, and people are saying "fuck you." I mean, the whole thing going on, for example, right now with Syria is you don't know what the state's role in it is. Are they supporting ISIS and against Assad, or are they against terrorism? And you know, like people are confused, and the bullshit is unending.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's misinformation.
misinformation, right?
Then that's a typical. I mean, that's the CIA is lovely for doing that. You know, intentionally giving out misinformation, and I think not only did they perfect that by using it on our enemies or whatever enemies we may have had in the past, but they use it on our own people.
They use it on our people. Let me give you an example of that. In the early, well, the mid and late '80s, we had this war on drugs, and you take a look at the prepositional logic of that, and try to figure out. You look at that and say on. On has 18 different meanings. Were these guys on drugs? Was it a war against drugs? Was it a war? You know, you can take that so many different ways, and then our government says, yeah, we're having this bland statement of war on drugs that we can pose 16 different ways to the public.
Yeah, but the other side of the coin is it was actually during the war on drugs that pharmaceutical drugs became more normalized in the community.
Right, and that happens just to be a different interpretation of that word on. And
That's right.
How we were going to perceive the word on, and they can take that. You take a bunch of slimy businessmen and a few slimy politicians, and you take that small statement of prepositional logic, and you put it to them, and they see those things very differently, and they start making money off it. They start doing things that are, and then they corrupted the program. I like to think we still won that particular war on drugs, but they used it in their best interest, and that's the thing that the educational system has to wake up society.
It'll never happen
things.
from the academia. It'll never happen. Look at what's going on now. They said after the pipe bomb thing, or what happened out in California, in San Bernardino, California.
Yeah.
Right. They'd said, and I saw it this morning on the headlines on my startup page, is they're looking at how to do the security of the United States differently now.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about that for a minute, isn't that what the Homeland Security bullshit was all about how to do security in the United States? And then the 30-some-odd different offshoots of that. There are so many different security agencies, governmental agencies. Right. None of them know what the hell the other one's doing.
Yeah, okay, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
And now they're looking into another thing, saying, "Oh, look at what happened in California," which at first they said, "Oh, gun laws need to be stricter," and all this happy horse shit, right? Then they found out, no, it was a terrorist act. Hey, they jumped right on the bandwagon the minute they verify that it was a terrorist act. Now we need more security for the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Watch where this shit goes now.
Yeah, domestic terrorism, they call it. And how many of you guys noticed that when you look out over the net in the stories, and half of the stories are, yes, 12 people died there, but half of the stories are, no, 2.5 people died there, or 2 people died there, and this story is just a big lie. And these people have what I call gun control fatigue, and they're so sick of hearing this stuff. Most people are so sick of hearing it, they just have gun control fatigue now, and they'll automatically go to the conspiracy theory now because they're fatigued with what they're hearing from the media.
Well, wasn't California, wasn't that 148 people that died? And that was an IED that they set off? It wasn't even a gun thing, I don't think. I mean, I might not have that all right, but
Yes.
it was a bomb that went off, and it was 148 people that died.
Oh, is that the French thing?
No, 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 in San Bernardino.
Oh, San
What
Bernardino.
are they?
I'm so behind on the news because I try not to open up the news pages
Yeah,
anymore
that's
unless.
But
where they chased.
don't you
Go ahead,
guys
John.
recognize the common pattern that happens in every fucking circumstance? It's the common pattern, and there's only one of two answers that ever come out of any kind of slaughter. A, spend more money on
Yeah.
security. B, get rid of the guns. And it's always one of those two. And in both circumstances, it strengthens and empowers the state, not the
Right.
people. Take the
Not the
guns
people.
away, the state's more powerful. Implement more security, the state's more powerful. And
Well, look,
those are
they've
the
been
two
doing
answers.
this.
Those are the two answers in every fucking circumstance.
Look, the government has been going after the gun control thing for quite a while, although covertly, by making almost everything a felony. Once you've been convicted of a felony, you can no longer own a firearm. So, in Florida, for instance, if you go 15 miles per hour over the speed limit, you can be charged with a felony.
Right.
Okay?
Endangering the public.
So, yes, and that's a felony. Now you can no longer own a weapon. Okay, and this is why we have people going in for the most mundane crap as a felony, and guess what? You can't own a weapon anymore. You know, so now if you get caught as a convicted felon with a weapon, they can also confiscate everything that you own or that you're in, like let's say your car, you know, if you're driving a nice car and whatever, boom, they got that too. So they've been doing this in a roundabout way that's been very very nasty, you know, of ruining people's lives just to disarm them because they are afraid of that. And the thing is, I mean, realistically, I don't care how many militias we have and survivalists and, you know, guys learning how to shoot their little AR-15s and stuff, but you're never going to win in an argument with the military itself. You know, it's just not going to happen.
That's not true.
But that's not how.
True.
Well,
That's
okay.
that's not true.
You know, if you think
You know
that
how you beat the military? There's and they realize this.
I
that
think we've
this
seen
is
a
the
good
underlying-
example of this. Yeah, I think we've just seen a good example of that with what's that that farmer that just got his the government wanted to take his farmland that his cows were grazing on, and everybody showed up. All the militia showed up. Guess who backed down?
Yeah, they didn't want another Waco.
But exactly, but fundamentally, the way that you disarm a military is by making them, but by psychologically putting them into a situation where they don't want to fight. And citizens firing back military will eventually cause that outcome. The military will say, "Fuck this! It's too dangerous, and I don't want to do it."
Yeah,
Well,
because the military are one.
Police. Look at the police forces gearing up in military armor already. Around here, this little county of, you know, I mean, they've got this goddamn tank on wheels here, you know, with 50 cal on top and all this shit, right? It's a military vehicle, and it could go through a house. I mean, a concrete block house without even thinking twice, you know. And if you look at the cops, the way they're fatigued out, the way everything, the dress, it's purely military. So they're not going to come in with the Apache helicopters and, you know, 50 cals blazing, but they're going to use the police forces to come in. And yes, you can kind of fight back with a certain amount of weaponry, but not in a head-on battle, not in a confrontational, you know, firing back and forth battle. You're not going to win that, and that's what I'm talking about. And they'll pick off each individual as they see fit that may present a threat, that may organize something, that may, you know, they're constantly on top of that, and they're chopping the head off the snake, if you will, in little pieces. And all these laws are in effect working, because if you got somebody, okay, let's say a family man, he got arrested, he's got a felony conviction from whatever long ago, he can't have a weapon anymore, and he has a gun at home to protect his family. Something happens, the cops find it, boom, he goes right back to jail. Problem solved. No more gun out there, no more guy that's even going to get one, right? I mean, they do it so covertly that uh, you know, and there's no
Yeah,
way
but
to stop them.
Warhorse, you have
That's
to
what I'm.
you have to remember something. There's two sides to that psychology. Okay, as an individual, you can be intimidated, but the moment you embrace the psychology of the nation, you come to understand that they can't lock up everybody. They can't shoot everybody. And
No, and
the only level of determination it takes to beat them is the determination of everybody.
right, and that's where the problem lies. Look at what trouble we have just getting men to agree on anything. And when I say, look, I'm not talking about myself here, of being scared or anything else. And what I would do personally would be quite a different situation. But what I am seeing, how men act nowadays, how most sheep act nowadays, and how easily they're herded into line with television reports and news and all this disinformation going out there, that this is what's going to win the battle. Even though they can't arrest everybody, too many of them are willing to follow in lockstep with what they're told. So this is the problem we're dealing with. We're not dealing with free-thinking men like ourselves that are well aware of what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. But there's a threshold of psychology that applies to our own biology, and what they have to do is they have to apply a level of fear that controls people. But that line is very fine in the human psyche, because if you place too much fear onto an individual, they no longer they no longer perceive their safety as running away, but rather fighting.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the question would be, what is that line in the sand that's pushing it too far? What is it going to take to push people to that extreme?
Yeah.
An immediate contrast of safety. An immediate contrast of safety.
I'd say we're there already.
No, we're not there already, and I'll compare it with what you would experience on a battlefield. You're first deployed. You feel compromised. You feel afraid. But then there's a place where you breach your fear and you start acting proactively. Like, there's guys on the battlefield that have, for all intents and purposes, for lack of a better word, they've gone crazy and they're ready to fucking murder. And that's because their sense of fear has been pushed beyond the limit.
Yeah. There's in relationship to the public and what the public is doing to protect themselves against what we perceive as a government or corporations that are out of control and doing things for their benefit rather than the protection of the civilian. What point does that become when you look at it as just a regular schmo on the street? You look up and you see all these horrible arguments and these horrible stories that are coming out. At what point do you feel unsafe in your country anymore? And I think they're getting to that point in say the Netherlands, or not even the Netherlands, Spain, and those countries that have a large influx of you see it come out in the immigration topics.
Yeah.
And you see it come out in certain gun control topics and everything, and they want to push it to take away the guns. And then there's most of the segment, everybody I talk to says, no, let's increase the civilians' ability to have guns and protect themselves. So they're just selling more guns in that respect. The more fear they provide, the more guns they sell, the more people are putting guns under their floorboards.
Yep.
Well, that goes along with the thought pattern of if you don't want to get shot in some type of attack, do not go to a gun-free zone.
Yeah, yeah, they will be like they'll be like fish in a barrel, won't they?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
they've socially already ratcheted up the level of distress so far that all the rhetoric that you hear in the news, it's nowhere near what is really happening. People are much closer to street riots than I think they even want to talk about.
Oh yeah, we could see that if we're looking for a typical example of that. What was that? Ferguson was a
Yeah.
typical example, and with the farmer, I can't remember that farmer's name. Was a
yeah,
typical
that was
example.
in Texas,
Yep.
West Texas, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, never. We almost ratcheted up to them points. We have riots. We had military militia showing up in a state that were ready to confront the armed government. And at that point, it was just the armed government. That was the ATF. Who did they send out? It was the ATF, I think it was.
I think
And
they had
then,
the DEA there too.
yeah, the DEA. And then we seen
FBI.
what they were bringing. They were bringing snipers with military full dress and military with military vehicles, and then you got a chance to look at that and make that observation as we're militarizing our police. We're militarizing tax collectors.
The question is how long is the extent to which people are willing to put up with that if they feel a sense of being brutalized.
Yeah.
On that ranch, basically, they all came together and united on the one side, and the government determined that it would be a bad choice for them to act against them. Well,
Right.
what the people are learning is that their safety will result from their own unification.
Unification, a common
But
core.
here's the problem too. Let's look at it from the Mgtow philosophy way of thinking here. Women want the government to continue to be in control because they enforce the laws that are to the female advantage. They run the welfare state. They're the ones giving out the handouts to the females, which the females will convince the men to not go at it as hard as need be.
Yeah.
Actually,
Is
here's
they thought.
my theory. The men that place themselves under the influence of women will be the first ones to lash out.
Yeah, they will be the social service state. The HHS, I call it the Health and Human Service state, has been militarized too. Take for example, child support and child. There's a few guys that I've talked to around here that when they stopped paying their child support, who the HHS made an immediate requisition to a judge that they have on staff that signs these warrants, and then all of a sudden you'll have police officers coming out. But when you notice these police officers coming out, it wasn't just police officers. There were two plainclothes police officers, and then there was two militarized police officers standing back in case violence, because they know in these situations that violence may occur. So they'll usually have one with an M16 there, a militarized M16 to go arrest. But simply arresting a guy because he got $500 back on his child support payments. So HHS in itself has been militarized by these same guys, these thugs, these enforcers that may became police.
Well, didn't even the
protecting the women.
IRS?
Yeah, the
Didn't
IRS
even
is
the
militarized.
IRS is carrying weapons now.
Yeah, they don't go out to the houses anymore. In the late 90s, the most murders in the government happened to IRS agents going and demanding being tax collectors and going demanding from house to house. They don't do that no more. You send an IRS agent to my house and demand money, and they're in danger. They would be in danger in my house. And I had an IRS agent a few years come back about after the divorce. She had done some shit with the taxes, and she made a $7,000, and they said, you got to pay that $7,000. They said, no, that's that. So the IRS lady came out to my house, and she sat on my couch. You know what she said to me? She looks around and she says, "Well, you owe the government taxes, and we want to come out to make sure you're not living too well."
Yeah. Well, their famous audit, you know, if anybody that's ever gone through an audit, I think has a certain amount of larceny in them afterwards, or murderous, you know, intent. Yeah. They do intentionally make your life miserable, but this is all again, you know, it does fall back into the gynocentric arena because this is all to the advantage of women. Because it does no advantage to a man whatsoever. We're not seeing any advantage for men.
There's no advantage,
whatsoever.
Yeah. It's, you know, militarized tax collectors collecting taxes for the gynocentric.
Yeah, and then they make us cannon fodder. You know, that's it.
Yeah, and they wonder why little boys, when they see this, and boys do see this, and young men do see this, are just popping off and starting to shoot.
Yeah, and then they might give you a little medal that's worth what, $1.50 or $2 to make. You know, they hang it on your chest, and now you're a war hero. Like it means something. You know, this is what you get for being a man. Well, thanks a lot. You know, and I'm going to work I did work my life to pay into the system, and I paid dearly. But I'm seeing now to where people are getting fed up with it, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, Mgtow is we talked about this a lot with John. I talked about this a lot. Mgtow at a certain portion, and you do it yourself, and I do it, and I know as John do it, is cutting off those streams of revenue that the women, the gynocentric, can use to do thug and force with us. And that comes from simple things in your life, like I just did last night. Roast your own coffee, make your own bread, and you cut off these them 6% sales taxes they no longer get. We do these things in Mgtow purposely for a reason. When we go galt, or we go out into society, and we start cutting off those little streams of revenue. I do that with my driving now. I don't drive. I don't buy the gasoline where they're making vast amounts of money on it.
Yeah.
And I don't buy that licensure that they're making vast amounts of money, and I don't buy that insurance program that they're making vast amount of money on. And I take that from them. I take that back, and I can use that money for better things in my life around here, like a new TV.
Yeah, damn right. And look, you know, I've known more men that have died after receiving maybe a year or two of Social Security. You know, something they worked all their life for. And you know, being in an older environment here, you know, retirement age type of area, I see these people dropping like flies, never really collecting much of what they paid in. And yet the government says, gee, it's going broke. You know, we can't afford this Social Security anymore. I'm sorry, if you look at where they're stealing the money from Social Security and paying it for unemployment, for welfare, for you know, abortion clinics, and you know, all this nonsense.
Right. Yeah, all the nonsense.
And they put an IOU in, and then the senator or the congressman, whatever, who put the IOU in, he's no longer in office. So the next guy says, well, you can't blame me. You know, it's just going broke. And sorry, we can't give you guys what you worked for all your friggin' life.
Right. Yeah, we see this pre-programming of the youth now to think that Social Security, you know, that it was some program that wasn't paid for, you know, and we always hear this with Social Security. And you know what I think is the worst thing I ever see in this society is when you have a female that may have worked maybe 20 years in her life, which is not dick. It's not dick in the working scenario, because if you haven't worked, you know, 30 to 50 years in your life, most men do, they're getting half their husband's Social Security after he died and never collected a dime. Or in a worst case, these men are just dying. That money goes back, and they paid their whole life, and then the money gets sidetracked into some gynocentric program. So we're still paying for women that are not productive. And that's
not
what
only
we're
that,
saying.
Joe, not only that, but when my wife passed away, she was getting Social Security. And I called in because somebody told me I was entitled to some of it, and I thought, okay. Well, no, you know what I was entitled to? $112 of survivor benefit, and
Ah,
that was it.
that was it. So
So it
it
only
doesn't
goes
work.
one
Yeah,
way. She
yeah.
would have gotten it if I'd have died.
Right. She would have got it if you would have died, but you don't get that if she died. And there's got to be a fair distribution of these funds. Besides, well, it started with Ronald Reagan. Every time they had a little surplus and the Social Security, they took that and used that for the military. And now we got these real problems, and the money that was extracted from the Social Security system for these social programs, and and I'll say outright, Social Security is not a social program. That's an insurance program you bought, so your life at the end would be better. You paid into that your whole life. There's no shame in accepting that.
No, and I had no choice. None of us did.
None of us.
Not
Yeah.
if you worked in the U.S., you had no choice. You
One
paid
thing.
in.
Yeah, you had no choice to pay for it, and these little taps that they did, the government's got to start fessing up and saying, hey, there's got to be a fairer system of distribution with that, and not let the feminization of Social Security, because these women will, if they push that far enough, they'll just be receiving, and I've heard these things where on feminist care ethics, where the first woman, Sandra, I can't remember her name, John might remember, Sandra Ballin or something like that. Wrote,
Bullock?
yeah,
Sandra Bullock?
Feminist Care Ethics, her first book in the 1990s, in the early 1990s.
Oh, no, that's not her.
And she
Bullock
said
is
that,
an actor.
yeah, all women by default are disabled because of the patriarchy. So all women by default should get a segment of Social Security to supplement their lives, and that's the way they want to do it.
Well, they're doing it.
They're doing it. Yeah, they're supplementing their lives through all the programs, and it's not generally visible to the public eye. It's not transparent, but that's where all the money came from. Your brother, your friend, your father that died and never collected a dime on Social Security. No, that money should go to money should go to the immediate family, and there should be a gross amount in there. Not the gross amount should be reflected, and that money should just, obviously, one lump sum check should go to the family under the auspice of distribution through what means he set up in his life, but that money just disappears now, and they think it's free money, because you know what it is. It is free money to them, and
Sure.
we know how people respect and don't respect free money. They don't respect it. They didn't have to work for it. They weren't productive people in their lives.
It goes right back into the coffers, and if you had taken your own money, what they took from Social Security, and put it into something, even an interest-bearing account, before the interest rates went to shit, you would be very well set.
Oh yeah.
Unless you blew your money left and right. But I think right now the top benefit for Social Security, the highest paying job or whatever, it's right around $2,000 a month. And tell me, how do you can live on $2,000 a month if nothing ever goes wrong in your life?
Yeah.
And if out of that you have to pay for medical expenses, of course. Now, if you're collecting it, you're old enough to where you're going to have medical problems. Drugs aren't covered by much or anything else.
Right.
So basically, this is where we hear the old term of buying cat food for dinner.
Right. They're creating a new welfare system and a new level of poor, aren't they? Now, I've done a little research on this, and the average amount of money that a Social Security recipient or a disabled Social Security recipient is going to receive is like $1,700 and a month, and that works out to somewhere about, they can make up to $24,000 a month. But now you start looking at the taxation, and you start looking at the new health care, and we all know
it's
feel that
$24,000 a year.
Yes.
Up to that level, you won't have to pay taxes on your Social Security.
Right. Now, you start taking government programs, what do you have to pay? Now, it'll generally land about $600 a month for your health insurance that you have to pay now, and they don't supplement that anymore. for you, that knocks you down to almost poverty. Now you add in, if you want to drive your car, in a government program of insurance, and then that 6% tax that you have to pay, 7% sales tax that you have to pay. You are now a new portion of the working poor that they created.
Yeah, this is why you see all these old men working at Walmart as a greeter, you know.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
I mean, they can't do anything anymore. They're decrepit. They're, you know, they're physically ailing, and what's left to them? You know, they get a minimum wage job, and it's part-time only because they don't hire those people for any length of time or anything, you know. And this is what people have to get by on. It is really nauseating the way they play with the money, do with it what they will, and it goes back into the coffers, and they think, well, this person passed away, they don't get to collect for the next, you know, what they perceive the lifespan of what you would be collecting at, right? I think, what is it, women 74 or 76 years of age? You know, my wife died at 61. Wow, you know, that's a lot of years of not collecting. And then they keep raising the standard higher and higher for the age to start collecting. Somebody's taking this money and spending it on frivolous shit, like how to make computers more female friendly.
There we
You know,
go.
I mean,
It worked right
goddamn.
back into that, didn't it? Yeah, so
Yeah.
we can see these things, but the government keeps going, and they're taking our eye off the ball while they do this bullshit. And let's talk about inflation in itself. A gallon of milk is, you know, every time we hear this, in the 1980s, where people made generally about the same amount of money as they make now, men do, and that $1,700 represents that you're going to get a month, represents about the same, but their spending ability, a gallon of milk is now 3 times the amount as it used to be. A gallon of gasoline is 100 times the amount, or 2, 3, 4, 500 times the amount. And then we have these presidential candidates and everything that don't understand that the cost of everything has ballooned by 300%, and your money spends like you're in poverty. You have to say it's the you know, looking at you're on a ramen noodle diet. Is that what we really want our elderly on? A ramen noodle diet?
Well, it would be beneficial if they die as soon as possible.
That's the way they think about it,
That's
and I
it.
think
Yeah.
that's the way they think about men. Please turn 62 and die. You know, that's what they want, and that's
Well,
what they're telling us.
that's after the medical system extracts as much money out of you as humanly possible. If you got any insurance or anything, they will keep you alive just long enough and just barely enough to suck that dry. And if you run out of that insurance or any way or means to pay, then they'll go ahead and just kick you to the curb and let you die. Nobody will
Yes.
give a shit about you,
And nobody will give a shit. Yeah.
especially if you're a man.
So we're you know, you hear about those death squads, the medical death squads, and that's what they're doing, and then that's what Mgtow should be. A lot of Mgtow should be, you know, saying these issues and facing this. And TFM does a good job of that, and a lot of the guys do a good job of explaining how the government's taxing us and tapping us out for these gynocentric programs. But
well, essentially what they're doing is they're creating an economy based strictly on debt.
On debt,
and the message to men is, this is the debt, you're responsible for paying it, and we will do whatever we have to extract it from you.
Right.
There is no prosperity, there is only debt.
Yeah,
and every time you see a new program, it's a program based on debt. And what everyone forgets in the final equation is, if you give the government $10 and they spend $5 on a new program, $3 of the $5 goes towards the administration of it.
The administration, and that's what's eating it up. I always like the idea of, me and a friend just talked about this, the idea of what they do in Russia, and I know everybody's going to go, well, communism, and let's just say Ireland. They take the post office, and you go down to the post office to distribute their supplement checks and stuff like that, which they call, I forget what they call it, but instead of having a huge HHS running, we have two systems here in the United States that need fixing. And one is the Postal Service, which can start taking more responsibility, and one is the library system. And the library system is huge out there. You got computers that can take general relief in, and you put up on that computer a simple program of working through a simple series of screens where you provide information, fax it to the computer, or put it in a way that the computer can identify who you are, what you need, and you can do that right in the library for nothing. You can do that right through the post office for nothing, but we have these huge HHS systems that are taking 1/3 of all the money, and people don't realize this. It costs $2.2 trillion a year to run this HHS system. You know, if you split that money up equally between the poor, it comes out, and I've done the math here, it comes out to somewhere around $17,500, and you gave that money to the poor, we would eliminate poverty totally in the United States.
Yeah.
On a simple screen. We could do that on a simple screen from your library with no extra cost.
The problem with that is it extracts the excuse of being able to go after your money.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it takes we've seen this biblically too, and I like to use the of chasing your alms, and that's what they're doing. They're chasing their alms. You get the alms, and then they're going back and saying, what are you doing with that alms? How are you spending that alms? And that in itself creates a another program of chasing the alms. And then these people that are chasing the alms realize that they can extract as much of that alms out as they want. It's like the guy in the church with his fingers inside the donation box and pulling it out. Nobody questions them.
I always used to joke that in the past, in ancient history, when you had a pantheon of gods, you know, like you had 30 or 40 gods, they weren't really gods. They were just ministries of taxation.
Ministries of taxation that, yeah, they use the deities, and that's why I always say the deities and the rituals. I try to explain the ritual traditionalism, that the ritualized traditionalism that leads you up to marriage and leads you into marriage, and after that I did the ladder of hypergamy is all a ritual system of deities that people buy into, and it's transformed now into the next deity, which is civil religion, and then they just built a system based on that, which is malformed to begin with.
Yep.
Ooh, yeah.
So much for progress.
Yeah, so much for progress when we're still doing what we did 6,000 years ago, you know. And there has to be a better system because we are smarter people now. And I think every single American and every single person around the world can see it, because we talk about some people are stupid and some people are this, but the average intelligent person does 2.5 million syllogisms in his head now. And has the understanding to understand all this stuff if it wasn't so damn confusing.
Well, look, you got this one guy, I think his name is Mark Dice.
Mark Dice,
he did
yeah.
these videos. Okay, I didn't know if I got that right. He did these videos going out there in California, interviewing people and saying, well, Hillary Clinton would like to do away with the First Amendment to make things easier and better, and everybody agreed with it. You know, it was like, huh? This is what we're dealing with here. This is the people on the street, your average American citizen.
Yep. Yeah, I get a kick out of his videos, actually.
Yeah, some of them are pretty good. I mean, he does show the stupidity and ignorance of your average person out there.
Yeah, he did one where he talked about nuking Russia.
Did he? I didn't see any of that. I just happened to catch those where he went out there interviewing, and why would you vote for Hillary? And almost without fail, every one of them said because she's a woman. That's it. That was it. That was the end result of why they would vote for somebody that has their finger on the fucking nuclear button. I mean, commander-in-chief of the largest military in the world because she's a woman. I mean, that was the only reason. No qualifications, and we wonder why we don't live in a meritocracy anymore. I mean, geez, give me a break. You know,
Yeah.
she's got a vagina.
Yeah,
That's why she deserves to be president of the United States.
Yeah,
Give
you
me
know
a
what? My
break.
mind already went to, as soon as I heard that and seen that, my mind went to, I would vote for Hillary because Bill would be back there pulling the strings.
Oh, we could only hope, but I doubt that would happen.
Yeah, I doubt that would happen, but it's a nice thought to have an economic genius like Bill running things again and get us back on track.
I mean, when people are realistically considering a clown like Donald Trump
Oh, yeah.
as being a better option, you know, we're kind of screwed. And you know, look, say what you will about Trump, but holy fuck, he's got to be better than her. You know,
Yeah, he's
this
the
is a
next
woman
best.
that said the real victims of war are the women. You know, I mean, she said that publicly. You know, how the fuck does anybody not get over this and think about how stupid that was, and that she actually believes this shit?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I put up a video once about, well, I started to do the video and I made some comments about Custer and Custer's last stand. And then Lizzie Custer, I think her name was, Custer was marching his guys around trying to get to Lizzie for, 6 months before that. And then at the end, after they all died, she said the same thing. Look at all, she was looking around the devastation of the camps, and there were no, all the males were dead. And she said, oh, look at the devastation that was caused by this and how the suffering for the women and children were.
yeah.
But when you look at what Custer was doing, he was a moron, and he exhausted his troops and he exhausted his resources and he exhausted those men by marching them around that area trying to get to Lizzie so he can get fucked. What a fucking blue pill simp that guy was. The guy that does a really good book on that was Huffling. Huffling writes Custer's Last Stand, and Huffling did the monkey experiments and the rat experiments too, and the Huffling hospital experiments. But he also does a very good book called Custer's Last Stand, where he tells us about, and he wasn't allowed to say it because when it was written, he wasn't allowed to say it at that point in time like he should have said it. He should have said Custer was a fucking blue pill, pussy-begging simp and killed those men because he had an ancestral need to go get laid. And that's what we see. That's what we see out in this society with the blue pill men. Their need to go do that is destroying our society, and it will cost other men's lives. And that's why I do the don't pay for someone else's bitch video. And you're expected to pay for somebody else's bitch, and it's just this way they think about this thing that we have to treat women with this honor and this dignity and this when she's acting goofy, it just says, oh, that's just my wife thing, and you got to respect her. No, you don't have to, because that's going to cost you money, and these guys will lead you down that road into destruction, into financial destruction, and even getting you killed to protect that female, so he can get his little jollies. And that's what's so scary about these blue pill men. That's what's the scary part about it, because they will use you as cannon fodder, your friends, their friends, to protect her, like Custer did. It's a terrifying. Once you wake up to the blue pill and the real, and you're allowed to say these things to yourself, and you're allowed to say these things the way they really are, the rationality behind it, it gets terrifying what these men have done to you and will do to you, because they simply don't see the tuck it, put it away, put it away those urges, and think about things more rational in a red pill way.
Well, my own impression, to be perfectly honest with you, is these guys are not necessarily doing it for women. They're doing it for their belief in the masculinity that they're attempting to occupy. Because a lot of these guys, they'll fuck over a woman just as quick as they'll fuck over anybody else.
Oh yeah, there's the second part, the second half of hypergamy. We talked about this other day. Hypergamy is not just for women, guys.
No,
men
not
buy
at all.
into hypergamy. Men see that system of hypergamy, and I go back to the deity thing, they are the second deity marrying the first deity and then putting the first deity on the pedestal. So it's men's faults almost 100% because they're too cowardice and too weak to say, no, I'm not going to no longer put that deity, I'm not going to accept that malformed information in my head that she is the Virgin Madonna. And we're not going to do that no more. Mgtows are saying, no, we're not going to. If a girl comes to us now, a woman comes to us, guess what she's got to bring? She's got to bring something to the table. And every Mgtow can say, no, you have to bring something to the table to be with a Mgtow. And that's where we find there are no waltz. There are no waltz out there because none of them are bringing anything to the table because the tax system supplements all their needs.
Well, here's the thing. I think the talk is getting harder and tougher, and rightfully so. It's needed. We used to have the saying back then when we wanted to, call somebody out on their what we call pussy beggars now, simps and manginas. Yeah. We just called them pussy whipped, right?
Pussy whipped, yeah.
Just pussy whipped. You're pussy whipped, right? And after a while, that term became so watered down that after a while, most of the guys just said, yeah,
Yeah, they're embracing it. They started embracing it.
Yeah, you start embracing it. And, of course, the white knighting, that's been around forever, and I was one, too, at a certain time in my life. And it gets watered down to the point where, okay, fine, I'm okay with that. So I'm pussy whipped, but at least I'm getting pussy, right?
Oh, you know what term they used? I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover. Everybody started saying that. I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover, and that's just accepting the pussy whip.
Yeah, that kind of bullshit never got it in my crowd. But I think that the reason that the talk is getting harsher, and like I said, it does need to be done. And to get the point driven home. And a lot of people, if they're blue pill or they're feminists or whatever, they say, well, look, you're doing the shaming talk just like what we're accusing other, people of. And unfortunately, there is a time and a place for that type of talk, to get through to somebody, to tell them that, look, pussy whip just isn't going to do it anymore. And you're, a lover, not a fighter kind of crap. Just doesn't get it with us. So these new terms that are coming out have to hit home a lot harder. It has to be a gut check.
Yeah, it's got to be a gut check for men to see it. Yeah.
Well, the question is, and it's a question I think that's worth asking. The question is your behavior based on the service to a woman? Or are you using the woman as a justification for your behavior?
Right. Yeah. And a lot of the guys use the woman as a justification of the behavior, and then some. It's in service too. But
the chest pounding thing.
Yeah.
I think we all do it.
Yeah, both of them are equally as wrong. And what would you clarify Mgtows is doing? No service.
I think we've put the chest pounding down.
Yeah.
Is there always going to be a little bit of ego involved? I think there will be. We're men, so certain amounts of ego are still going to be there.
Yeah.
I think myself, I think that part of the reason why there's so much conflict in the Mgtow is because the excuses to some degree are removed. You don't get to blame it on, your wife or your girlfriend or anything like that. You actually have to take responsibility.
Yeah, for what you put in. Yeah, I take responsibility.
Yeah, and I think ultimately the result from that is that you have more conflict in the community, challenging each other.
Right. Yeah. Now they'll say, okay, Joe, you need to take responsibility 100% for that, and I do. I take responsibility. That was a mistake I made in my life, but that's where they get you with the man up shit. And okay.
Yeah, but see, Joe, the thing is, look at any group of feminist men. Okay. Any group of feminist men, do they challenge each other at all?
No.
I've never seen it.
No. There's no one ever is going to stand up and say, hey, do we got this a little wrong here?
But that's because they all default to the same thing. They're doing, I'm an asshole because I'm being an asshole for women.
Yeah. Yeah, and that becomes socially acceptable, like the phrase Warhorse used. What was that phrase? I'm just going to accept this and be the simp and be the mangina. I'm going to make that okay and use that as a default setting because now it's okay to be a mangina. No, it was never okay to be a mangina.
Oh, I'm just looking at the different communities. Like I look in the MRA community,
Oh yeah.
and I see a small amount of conflict, but not like in the Mgtow community. In the Mgtow community, there's much more conflict between the members of the community, and I think the result of that, I think where that comes from, is for the lack of having an excuse.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We see
Well,
the
they're afraid to call each other out.
yeah, the
And
hamster wheel starts going, doesn't it?
yeah, it's groupthink, and we're all in danger of it happening. If you start hanging out with certain groups of people, like-minded people, you do eventually get that groupthink, and then somebody calls you out, and if you have the presence of mind to actually reflect on it and say, yeah, they're right. I am getting that herd mentality, and I am going to
Yeah.
stop it, and right now, and I am going to think about this on my own without talking to these guys, because if you go into an echo chamber, you're going to stay there, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I just had this
because,
argument with someone on my page, and I tried to explain to him that conformity for the act of nonconformity is just conformity. Once you start conforming to what the group wants, totally 100%, it's just you're conforming to nonconformity, and it becomes nonconformity, and that's what I see with these guys. There's this there's this level of what was it that he used on my? He said that I was. Oh, let me look it up real quick, and
well, it's basically what happens is it's not so much conformity. Well, it is conformity, of course, but what happens is that as an individual, you internalize that
they
groupthink.
internalize
And
that group. Then, yeah, he was
yeah,
arguing.
and
He was arguing with I say social etiquette, and he says social etiquette, and he goes, "What you mean?" And it's a real bitch statement, I think. He goes, "What you mean really is conformity," and then he goes, and he equates that with traditionalists love etiquette. So it's a P to Q, and then P equals Q automatically, and then he says, and he does the false equivocation and says traditionalism loves etiquette. So he's conforming to the nonconformity in and itself is conformity. And I
well,
tried to
that's a
explain that.
correlation. That's a correlation fallacy, or correlation
Yeah,
is not causation here. And
yeah,
look,
correlation is not causation. Yeah,
conformity will occur in any group, and
right.
um, I mean, whether it be the VFW bunch, or in my case, the bikers. You got the clubs, you got conformity. Everybody's conforming into their own group, even though that group may say we're outside of the reality of society,
Right. Yeah.
and
So it
we're
becomes
nonconformists, but we're all nonconformists
in our
together.
single way. Yeah, you got to
you
put
know,
that away. We
but
we are a group, and we're not forcing a group mentality. We're saying you do it your individual way, and that will be the nonconformity of it. Do it your individual way. But now we're getting this segment that's that's doing just like it did in society. Uh,
right, but there's safety in a herd, right?
their safety in the herd, and they get these things a little bit malformed. I'm not saying conform to no social. If they don't want to conform to a social etiquette like we do here, I'm simply saying go somewhere else then, because I don't put up with that, and that's my nonconformity. My specific brand of nonconformity is saying no, I don't put up with that bullshit of this pussy begging, these manginas. I don't put up with that. What did Burns say about Heartburn say about these emasculated males come around and they start talking like bitches? Uh, no, I don't put up with that. You can go somewhere else and do that somewhere else, but not in this group.
Well, that brings us back in circle to the lone wolf
Right.
mentality, which is, look, if I belong to a club and we all say, well, we're nonconformists, we don't conform to society's rules or anything else, but we do it as a group. So now you're conforming to that group, not the rest of society maybe as a whole, but you're still conforming to that group. So the only way to be a true nonconformist is to be a lone wolf, isn't it?
In a way, you can have your. And my point is, we have a group here that thinks alike, and that's fine. And there's a group over there that thinks alike, and that's fine. And there's a group over there. It's when the gentle meshing of the groups starts saying, "No, I don't believe in. We don't have an etiquette here because we just rage out." And that's okay. You do that, but do that over there is what I'm saying to them. There's a. If you try to remove the social segment from it, they're going overboard with it. And it's like we get these guys come around, well, I'm just as a lone wolf, and that's the way everybody should do it because that's best for Mgtow. Well, we have lone wolf groups and group dynamics going on here, and we don't restrict what they want. But
isn't that kind of a fight for the territory, though?
That's a fight for the territory. Oh yeah, it becomes they want to win for the purpose of winning, not for the purpose of being true.
It's a gang mentality.
It's a gang mentality, and then it becomes everything becomes nihilism to these guys after a while. Everything someone says becomes just you take the nihilism aspect and you take that nihilistic stance that you're wrong and you're wrong and you're wrong and I'm the only one that's right. No, it's about growing in here and this group learning to respect other men's wishes, but not complain about it. And that's what Shining was saying all week is these guys were complaining about us complaining about the etiquette that we do in our group. If you want to come to our group, there's an etiquette. And it's a very good form, and you can see how socially the structures with these men, we're usually military men, we're usually we have a structure in our life that works for us, and we don't bitch like little girls and stuff like that, and that works for us, and we see that this emasculation in these men, and we don't want that around either because that could never work for us.
Well, I'm going to respond to what you've been saying because I happen to disagree with you. I actually don't think like you guys do. And I could point out 100 different instances throughout the conversation where I actually occupy a different stance.
Yeah.
The difference is that I'm listening to you guys and I'm basically trying to exchange with you guys on some level of civility.
Civility, yeah.
So essentially what I'm recognizing is if I want to try and make a point, I have to respect the people that I'm talking with and try to understand where they're coming from so that any message that I might exchange could be understood in a clearer and more defined fashion, if you will. So rather than just sitting on my microphone and telling you guys you're full of shit, I'm actually trying to give some logical structure to an opposing position. And what I discover is when I do that and when I introduce, the logic that I've engaged for a point that I may support, I don't really get back a lot of flack or anything. It's sort of like, well, yeah, okay, I can see that. I didn't think of that, or that's an interesting direction. How can we develop it further? So it turns away from this. It turns away from this pissing contest into maybe a more civil exchange.
Yeah, that's what we try to do around here, a more civil exchange between men. And there's a lot of difference. There's a lot of difference between each one of us in the groups that we pick to. So, it's just like life. There's bakers and there's car mechanics and there's these guys over here. And don't take that at face value. They just think about life that works for them, how we understand life. And that works for us.
Well, it's kind of like the conversation that we sort of had midweek, where there was a couple of guys on and they were talking about being accused, being falsely accused, and all that sort of stuff. And the position that I was taking is, how can we do this in such a way as to allow you the freedom to do the things that that engage your interests without having others see it as some kind of socially unacceptable behavior, or and get rid of all of the accusation and everything else. And my solution was, rate the shit. Like, if it's adult material, label it adult material. If it's not, don't.
Right.
And I don't see it as a complex issue.
No, yeah, it's not
No,
a
and it
sharp.
wasn't. It wasn't. It was a very rudimentary, basic issue that was so solvable that the discussion should have never happened. But hey, look, I wasn't involved in it. I did listen to most of it. The thing here is, everybody has a choice to make, and if I don't agree with some people, or I don't like their way of acting, or what they're doing, I ignore those people. Plain and simple. It's like, look, if there's a Goldwing, Honda Goldwing ride going on, and a big hangout and everything else, and I go rumbling in there with my Harley, and everybody tells me what a piece of shit I got, and it's noisy and vibrates. Okay, I did this to myself, right?
Right.
So I don't find a lot in common with people that are on one of those rides or something, that are talking very proudly about what they own, and rightfully so. They should enjoy what they have, and I have nothing to say about that. My opinions don't matter. I don't have one. Therefore, I just don't go. No skin off of my back, man. But I will go to something where, okay, everybody wants to show off their Harley. Okay, I'm there. Now I'm within the group of people that I enjoy being with, and I will not hear any dissension.
Right.
That is purely speculative, or whatever these guys may be in. Same like I wouldn't go to Black Bike Week, in Daytona. I'm not a black guy. Therefore, what the fuck would I be doing there? I would probably get very insulted and offended and all this butthurt shit, right? If I went there, I'm a white guy, what the fuck am I doing there? Holy crap. Logic and common sense would dictate that I would do something else that appeased me. Good grief.
Yeah, it's these crossovers of group where, and I think Shining had a very good point. He says, and what are you saying is these crossovers of group are trying to do the third step thinking about, I said that I like this and I do this way, and they say, no, you're not allowed to do that. And you say, no, I can't do, I don't like the porn issues and that stuff. I'm not saying go away, or not saying, I'm just, don't send it to me. And then they say, no, you don't have the right to do that. And they're applying the same, it's hypocritical, because they're applying the same logic that they would ask for themselves, but they can't see that it's third stepping the whole thing and say, no, now you're losing your rights to do what you want to do, because somehow, no, just move along into your own specific group. And whether that ends up Mgtow or not Mgtow would depend on the philosophy and the way of thinking that you use. But it becomes very difficult around here when we start crossing over with the issues of morality. And the issues of morality have always been forefront in philosophy, from Kant to Hobbes to Foucault to that whole thing is developed.
But morality is a very personal, subjective thing, and everybody has their own, and it all differs. And the thing is that, for the most part, especially on the internet, you can block people, you can get rid of them on your G+ page, your email, you can ban people there. I mean, pretty much you can be left alone. Now, if they come into your front yard and start showing movies on your front porch,
that's right.
It's a different story. But now you can defend yourself physically against that, or use the police, whatever is at your disposal. But everything else can be ignored. Things on TV that are offensive to you, well, you just don't turn the channel or turn the TV off or whatever. I mean, things are so basic. And like I said, common sense dictates here. If you don't like something, don't inflict your morality on other people, but keep it to yourself. You live by your own morality, as do I. Okay, I have my own lines that I draw, and I insist that they stay there, Nobody's going to change my point of view on it. And I just weed out the things that don't apply.
Yeah, you just read
So
out.
it's
Now,
that easy to me.
I seen a great example of what John was talking on the boards. The subject had came up, and the person took the high road on it and said, you know, I'm a great parent, I'm doing this, and I don't allow the children to do this, and I don't allow the people to look at this stuff, and the responsibility falls 100% back on me, and I take that responsibility 100%. And then the next comment was a rampage of swear words, and then he said, do you get it? Could you have blocked that? And no, you can't block that. And what John's saying is the preceding warning in that rampage of swear words would have been caution, adult material. Yeah, so you can't. There are some things you just can't block on the internet, and what Mgtow and what John was.
That's real life too, Joe. I mean, if you're at the shopping center with your family, you know, everybody, and you hear some guy all of a sudden get gutter mouth, you know, all kinds of cuss words, maybe he stubbed his toe, maybe he's pissed at his old lady, who knows? And now your children heard all these words and everything, and let's forget the fact that they probably already heard them. They're just not allowed to say them. You don't want them to hear that type of thing. You don't want them to witness that type of action. But what are you going to do about it? That's part of reality.
Yeah,
now
you
it's up to you. It's up
to
you to explain to your child why this transpired, why it happened, and why it shouldn't happen, and why this person was wrong in their actions and everything else. See, this is reality. We can't protect ourselves from everything.
We can't protect ourselves, but you can't take it. You can take a man stand on that and say, "Hey, buddy, stop that language." Don't you see this, children?
No, I think that's just part of dealing with reality, Joe.
Oh no, I've had thousands, because I do have children, and John brought this up, that there's a difference between guys that have children and guys that don't have children. And
certainly. And look, if they come in your house and they act that way in your house, then you have every right to force your opinion on them, or they can get the hell out. Okay.
Right.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying being in public. And being on the internet is like being in public.
You've gone out of your house, and then, I do have the right of, my station, my channel, my zone, my personal man space. I have the right to say, no, this will not happen here. And
definitely, no doubt.
Yes, that's what they're trying to take, and they'll say, oh, no, and it goes back to the shifting and blaming of the parental. In that situation, the parental is the site owner. You're blaming the site owner because someone put something foul, and then there's the moderation thing that comes in. Okay, I'm going to moderate you, but what these people are saying is, no, you're not allowed to moderate them.
Greetings, guys.
Hey, Shining.
Yeah, there's a couple of issues I wanted to pick up there. Warhorse, he brought up the issue of if you're in public and somebody starts cussing. The thing about that is everybody has their tolerance level. I mean, it seems like we're on the issue of morality again, and I think I said this. I probably repeat myself too much, but everybody has their tolerance level. Like, if somebody just starts cussing, like they say, "Oh, God damn it," yeah, you're probably not going to say anything. But if you're walking past a group of kids and they start saying, and you're with your kids and they start saying, "Oh, look at that bunch of monkeys," or they start saying something like that, yeah, you might want to just have a little word with these people. I think that's what being if I can say, because the thing is, as men,
you're moderating, aren't you? In essence, you're moderating.
You are moderating, because if somebody calls your children a group of monkeys, especially if you're black, it's very offensive. Or if they says, "Oh, look at these," what do they call it? Crackers? They says there's two adult crackers and there's two baby crackers. You're within every right to step in, and me personally, I'd smack him across the mouth. I would just punch him in his face. And
you're trying to teach adults manners, and that would be nice in a perfect world where that would actually work. but I don't think that you're at that point. If you slap them across the mouth, you're reaffirming their opinion of you. Okay, the best thing to do, and look, you know, I agree with you. 20 years ago, I would have been beating somebody into the bloody pulp, right? But it doesn't work out well. And it doesn't work out in your favor. Actually, it works out in their favor. It reaffirms their opinion of you. And
Yeah, but the thing is, you at that point you don't care about their opinion of you because they've already got a bad opinion. Let me tell you, they're not going to call
but
you
you're
that
not
again.
you're not gonna change it. No, they might not do it to you personally,
Yeah, they're not going to do it.
or
Trust me.
or
They
they'll have you
won't come around the
arrested
kids.
for.
And the kids are what we're talking about here. They will never come around this group of people anymore, and that's the point.
There's another issue as well. I mean, we keep referring to this place as a community. We keep referring to Mgtow as, and we are. I mean, we do have some level of friendship amongst each other. As soon as you recognise a guy as a Mgtow or a men's rights, there is a certain level of camaraderie between us, and we are right to say we are a community. Now the thing is, when a group of us start, for example, saying we need to slaughter all the women. I mean, everybody had outrage when Mgtow United and what was his name, Sexy Mgtow, saying, you know, women should be put in concentration camps and they should be executed. Yeah, rightly so. There was a big outcry because we didn't want that as representative of the community, especially as Mgtow United had what 6,000. And then there was what's his name, Sexy Mgtow. He had like at that point he had like 2,000-3,000 subscribers, and you know people were listening to these guys. So we rightly so said, hey, we don't agree with that. Now, so what's his name?
Yeah, that's a reflection on the entire group, and I can see that. I mean that needed to be called out because everybody else that identified with that label now fell under that opinion that these guys put forth. And to the layman, it seemed like, oh, they all think this way, and this is why we call that out. And yes, rightfully so. You know, now if they'd have said, look, this isn't a Mgtow video, and I'm an anti-female or a true misogynist or whatever the hell they want to say, you know, okay, fine, you've distanced yourself from it, but don't come in and out of the door. Don't say one day that, yeah, I'm going to wear your patch, you know, and I'm a brother, and the next day you say, hey, you know what, fuck your patch, I'm this now, and no, that shit doesn't work. It doesn't get it. So those people we rightfully call out, you know, and it's a whole different...
Isn't it interesting that when you have an office job and you're required to dress in certain apparel, that people just don't arbitrarily turn up in bathing suits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting that what a guy wouldn't say under his own identity, you know, like, even, I mean, they won't say it under their own identity, but they'll say it under a group identity.
Yeah, that's true. And
Right.
I think that's what we have sometimes. I think sometimes when people are in a group, they sort of feel validated or strengthened in perhaps being more brash or saying some of the more extreme views. And I see
safety in the herd.
Yeah.
The groupthink in those kind of groups can go way beyond what it should too, and that's when you have to start. Somebody has to say, "Hey, you're going way beyond what's legal in life or what you can talk about in life. You can't talk like you." And
that's why I support Joe. That's why I support Joe in this, because at the moment it's so liberal. I mean, we admit, I've heard it passed around. They say, "Oh, we hate liberals," you know, the far right, the far left. But we really are so super liberal in Mgtow that there is no. There's no red light. You know, there's no red light in what you can say. You can say kill all women. You can say kill all blacks. You can say kill all whites. You can say kill all Muslims. You can say kill all.
Well, yeah, you know, people,
again,
just because people say it doesn't mean we allow it and we call it out. You know, and I'm not taking sides here with anybody. I mean, I've got a very middle of the road perspective on it. You know, not that I fall entirely into Joe's camp, nor do I fall into their camp either, Okay, so I look at it from a whole different point of view. In other words, I'm across the street watching the fight. That's, you know, but we're
Yeah,
calling it out, and we don't
yeah,
accept it.
Yeah,
yeah.
but,
But
but the
yeah,
thing is, you get people that are calling out the people that are calling it out. They're saying, stop
yes,
stop policing Mgtow, stop being so, stop being the father of me or whatever. But they've got this thing that where we have to be able to say whatever we want. But I'm saying no. Every person has a limit.
yeah.
Every
And
single
what they're
person.
really doing is they're false equivocating MGTOW as the total group with their group. There's and no, I'm just saying for my group, these are the restraints I put on myself. These are the etiquettes I put on myself. That's okay for my group, and that's okay for their group to say that. But to encompass an umbrella all of MGTOW under that, no, they have no right to encompass and umbrella all of MGTOW under that, and then call you out for calling, saying no, I'm not going to allow this in my group, and that's simply what I'm doing. Is saying I'm not going to allow this in my group, and I will use the ban button, and I will use it, whatever I say. That's okay. You're allowed to say anything you want, and that's where the freedom comes in. You're allowed to say anything you want. And if someone calls you out on that, well, there's a you're gonna hear it. Me making those decisions on what is acceptable is modesty. Modesty plays a big part in this thing, and once you violate the norms of modesty in your society, everybody knows you're wrong. you know. So is etiquette, in a word that is just modesty, and when you violate those norms, oh yeah, you know you're wrong. You should know you're wrong, shouldn't you? You should know you're wrong, and some of these guys don't know when they're wrong, and that's when it becomes problematic in the sense is, what do you do with the mental health individuals that don't know when they're wrong? And they start fighting. They start fighting they stop fighting for the truth, and they start fighting to win.
What I'm kind of seeing, Joe, is I see it from your point of view, but also I see it that you're inflecting your morality and your values on other people, and by dictating that.
Which one of these guys that I speak of would you not consider mentally ill?
See, this is where I'm not. I don't. I do see these people as having a problem. Okay, but coming from my own moral standards. Okay, my own.
Now Now we're talking. We're talking. We reject care ethics in Mgtow.
Right, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to inject my values on these people.
Yeah.
I have no right to tell them that they need to act or do anything in a certain way that appeases me to any degree. I will just take these people and get them out of my life.
Right. That's what we do. That's what I did. And, now I wanted to move this forward a little bit. We reject feminist care ethics in Mgtow because most people have never really read them. But then we try to employ feminine care ethics in Mgtow by saying, oh, we have to include the mentally disabled in that. And that's the same thing. I see it as a big hypocrisy. And when I'm saying, I don't want care ethics. I don't want to have that I don't want to have that burden of care ethics. So I remove these men from my life as I see them as mentally defective, and that removes the burden of care ethics on me. And I stay with the Mgtow philosophy of no egalitarian care ethics in my space.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not qualified to judge whether someone is psychologically fucked up. I'm not qualified, and I'm not sure, Joe, that you're now. And here's where I'm going to say something you may not like, but hopefully I'll express it in such a way that it becomes a little bit more understandable. I don't know if you, Joe, are qualified to make that kind of diagnosis. So I'm not sure if characterizing it that way, beyond what you feel towards the person who's displaying that sort of negative behavior, I don't know if it's realistic to characterize it that way, because it sort of presents this exaggerated format that becomes a quick and easy default. Like,
Yeah. Well,
when we were
I'll just
talking
say
the
it.
other
I'll just say
day,
it. I am qualified to. I am qualified to make that kind of decision.
then my next statement would be, if you're declaring yourself qualified, show me the evidence that they're whatever it is, the term that you were used.
Well, I
Show
think
me the actual evidence.
it's more of a broader term that I look at it
Yeah, see,
as.
that's right.
These are high-strung people that have a problem, and by a problem, I call it an unidentifiable problem on purpose, as related to how I see things in my world. So therefore, I can't say that they're mentally disabled, because maybe my outlook on life
No,
is
it's not that I'm
really
saying. I'm not making that judgment on whether they have told me they are mentally disabled. They have said they use pills. They have said they seek medical help. They have said they've done this. They have said so. They have said these things, and I
Yeah,
have just.
and look, when I heard that, my response to that was, what specifically is your disability? Because I don't even accept the average. If someone said to me that they were mentally disabled, well, I don't think they're qualified to make that determination.
Yeah, I'm not going out there doing analysis of mental defects or I take what I hear in here, and when they say, oh, I'm taking my pills and I'm trying to do this, and they join the mental health group and everything, and they talk about those things, I'm simply making an observation that they have qualified themselves as those people. Now, when they come around to my area, do I automatically have these care ethics to have to understand that kind of thinking? No, I'm not that. It's not that I don't have the ability to do it. It's just like I don't want to. It's like I'll say all the time, just because I can lift 300 pounds doesn't mean I want to lift 300 pounds. And just because these people are around and I have the ability to do that doesn't mean I want to, and it's not going to be forced on me to do that. And the only way I can separate myself is to separate those people and say, no, I don't accept that.
I think it'd be fair to say, though, John, I think it'd be fair to say that if you saw some very erratic or some very peculiar type of behavior, you would, if you were sincere to yourself, you would say there's something mentally wrong with this person. For example, if you saw someone sitting on the train just talking to themselves, or scratching at the seats, or I don't know, just peeing in their pants, you'd say, a grown adult anyway, you'd say there'll be something wrong with them mentally. I don't think you really need to be a psychologist to see that some of the behavior, and it's understandable. I mean,
I'm gonna interrupt for a second. I want to interrupt for a second, okay?
Go ahead.
And I'm directing this right at you, Shiny.
Sure.
What goes through my mind in assessing any particular circumstance does not default to what you may believe about me. In other words, what I'm saying is, I specifically do not subscribe to labeling anybody anything without evidence. I will not sit on a train and assume that someone is mentally disabled or deficient or anything else just because of a resulting behavior, because there may in fact be a reason.
And that's a good way to look at it. But just in terms of you being there in front of this guy, I think it'd be safe to say, well, I'm going to move away from this person.
Yeah, would you assess
There's a
the risk?
difference. No, listen to me.
Oh, okay.
Please. There's a difference between choosing to move away and labeling someone in a way that I'm not qualified to label them.
Okay, now what if that person pulled out a bottle of pills that you can clearly notice that is a psychotropic and started taking them? Would you be able to label them then?
No, I wouldn't label them then.
Well, that's the proof.
And I'll tell you why.
That's the proof that you asked me
No, it's
for.
not Joe, it's not the proof, and I'll tell you why. My son went to school. And I was told by his teacher and other people working in the school that he had ADHD and that he should be on Ritalin. And I
Okay.
told him at that point, you're not qualified to make that diagnosis. You don't have that training. It's a subjective opinion. He was tested. He was tested negative. Now, if I just accept their diagnosis and follow through with what they would like to impose, the result is
Would have been,
damaging.
yeah.
And,
Now, you
and
can say that that's the exception to the
my
rule.
life
That's the 1%. Well,
label people.
yeah, that's the 1%, not the actual rule. The rule is we do the risk analysis with people before we do anything. Am I at risk with this person around me? And then I can appropriately judge whether I'm at risk in, a metaphysical situation like we're in now, or a situation out there in public. I do the risk assessment naturally.
And I'll
then,
tell you what I'll tell you what my assessment is. When a guy says to me that he's mentally disabled, and the result of that is a particular behavior,
yeah,
I'm not necessarily going to buy into his bullshit. But what I will say is, you know what, buddy? You're fucked enough that I don't want to be exchanging with you because we're obviously not exchanging on the same level. But
right.
it's not my obligation to label him.
That's the point, John. Excellent.
Actually, yeah, that's the same. I think we're talking about the same thing here, and just from
the only distinction I'm making is the default to going to labels, because first it starts out
labels.
Yeah, all right.
Labels
Okay.
Labels are,
But for the sake of what Joe's talking about here, Joe's talking about keeping a progressive, a clean, a productive channel where he discusses, generally Western men's predicaments. Now the thing is, I agree with you actually there, John. I don't think we should fall into labels like, oh, this guy's of this, this guy's of this group, so he's going to have this particular belief and he's going to be like this. I actually agree with you on that. But when it comes to mental illness, you get from just the people that are slightly depressed to the psycho axe murderers. So I think when you get to that psycho axe murderers case where you are, for example, Sexy Mgtow, he just made a video where he said all Jews and Muslims should be killed. Now I think that falls into the psycho axe murderer crazy.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to put in label's a harsh word. Did I label someone, or did I make an observation?
I think the observation leans in the direction of labeling them because it becomes the default, comfortable, and group accepted definition.
Yeah.
So
see, my point would be, did I label them, or did they label themselves when they expounded out that information in public?
Well, I don't know, because you did it, but I'll tell you.
They labeled themselves.
But even in
I just
labeling
made an
themselves,
observation of that label. They labeled themselves.
and and all I'm saying to you is, even when they labeled themselves, I still didn't accept that label.
Okay, yeah, people have the right to accept it or further delve into it and everything. I just made the simple observation that they labeled themselves, and then I said, no, I don't want these people around. And then they did what Shining was said. They said, you can't make that decision of not wanting you to have those people around now, because somehow.
Guys, HD Failure makes a good point here. He says, okay, we are discussing PC, political correctness here.
Right.
And
yeah.
He's got a point, a very good point that I take to heart at this part in our discussion here, is that we are getting into the micromanaging of political correctness of terminology.
Well, no one would like it to go away more than I would. No one would like this, and if I didn't have to, put myself between me and my channel, and put myself, if they would stop forcing me to do that and not put these things out in public, like you made a very good point, John. If they didn't put that out in public and stop forcing me to take this, because they know how I'm going to react every single time to it, I wouldn't have to do it.
Okay.
Nobody wants it to go away more than me.
Here's the grassroots problems, yeah. I think everybody knows, everybody listening to this, the four of us here know that you start off on the internet, you start off on your channel. If you've got a YouTube channel, or you just out on the day, you know, you want to watch a certain type of material on YouTube, and then all of a sudden you put a comment underneath a video, and then all of a sudden a big 150 thread argument starts, and then you've completely been sidetracked from your original intention of, you know, trying to learn something about that day or make a video or etc. Now the thing is, we've all been there,
Yeah.
and we get caught up in that because we think that maybe this guy has a point, and you're arguing with this you're arguing with this guy because you think maybe he hasn't seen my point of view or I haven't seen his point of view. That's if you're rational and logical. But if you're not logical, if that person's not rational and logical, you're just wasting your time. You're just wasting your time, and that's the point. You know, why waste your time with these people that are really not capable of changing their mind, or I think what Joe's trying to say is slightly mentally deficient. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but it's distracting me from the intention.
Yeah, I'd rather have these conversations with you three gentlemen that I find bright, intelligent, you know, red pill men, than waste my time on one guy that I can see from the exception, and I made that from the inception, and I made that observation from the inception of his argument that he is never going to get it, and he has some work to do on himself, and me saying he has some work to do on himself is a different issue than me, you know, just going off on it and saying no, and to a certain point we can say these men have some work to do on themselves. Please stick around, but don't go away. But try to fix that problem that they have with rationalizing some of the philosophy.
And the thing is, when you've got a channel with 3, 4, 5, even 10,000 subscribers, and you're constantly having to shift through the messages and shift through requests and things. And believe me, John, I'm with you. I dislike labels. I think if you label somebody and you automatically think that they've got the same beliefs and the same biases as everybody else, I think that's a big mistake. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with thousands of people on a daily basis, or thousands of comments, which I'm not saying we do, we've all got very small channels, but they do label certain people. They do label them, oh, this person's crazy, or this person's an atheist, or this person's a Jehovah's Witness, or this person's a creationist, and we automatically either discount them or just give them a cookie-cutter reply. Unfortunately, this is how a lot of people deal with things.
What's actually comical here is I'm arguing against labeling individuals, but I'm arguing for labeling issues.
Issues, yeah. There's a difference between. I just had that thought in my head when Shiny was talking. There's a difference between that and the other thing. I can't remember how you put it, Shining, but there is a difference in that too. So it's down to the micro now when we're breaking these things. But that's what we do. We break these things down to the micro and we talk about them.
Yeah, and basically, I think what I'm trying to argue here is, on this venue, and in this meeting, there's a particular form of discussion that's taking place. There's a comfortable exchange. There's a level of civility, and there's not sort of an overexpressed need to compete. Now, let's say that guy that comes in who says, I'm mentally whatever, well, if he had his own channel and he labeled it mentally whatever, then I may look at that channel and say, I'm going to go and have a talk with that guy regarding the issue of mentally whatever. But once you label the person, it makes it difficult to approach that person in any kind of a discussion, because they're viewed always in the same context. And I don't think people remain in the same context.
Oh yeah, we're using them as when we do that, we use them as a test subject. I'm not going to go over there and just go, oh, this is so freaking fascinating, and there's something for me to learn here, and there is something for all of us to learn there if you're astute and you're trying to be indifferent. In the idea of being indifferent too, and when you go into a place where you know that there's going to be this mental health group, just to sit back. And if I ever approach that group or get invited into, I sit back and I casually take in what I'm observing, and then it is fascinating to see how they think, and it is fascinating to come to little conclusions in my head. But at that point, I'm not going to interject into that their argumentation, because I know that and then the same thing goes with their group. If they come over to this group, interjecting into this kind of conversation would be equally as wrong, wouldn't it?
Well,
Yeah,
don't we have our own? You know, all of us have a preconceived bias against certain other people. You know, whether it be a group of people, whether their nationality, their religion, or what have you, anything that's different from ourselves, we tend to have a personal bias against it. And how we perceive that and deal with it is different also to each and every individual. And then it's also how you deal with that situation of do I attack that group? Do I attack that whatever it is? There's certain people I don't feel comfortable being around, therefore I just won't be around them. And that could be anything, you know, whether it be religious or racial or nationality. It could be anything. There are certain groups of people that I personally wouldn't feel comfortable around, and therefore I would divorce myself from that group of people as best that I could.
Yeah.
I don't even want to understand them, and I think we all have that bias at a time when we go into it with that.
Right. Yeah. We don't want to be around certain types of people, and that's okay. You have that you have that right to segregate yourself and keep yourself safe, and do those things. And but we have this gentle leaching of if you look at it in a group dynamics chart with the little circles, and the circles kind of gently blend together, and there's going to be that gently blending, and I can apply some care ethics to that. But when like a destructive amoeba, when that amoeba starts eating away at the rest of the circles in a group, and it becomes one big, as you do know, that group became very, very huge.
I think
destructive.
But picking up on what just said, I think sometimes his biases are good and sometimes they're quite harmful. I think sometimes when we just believe all hearsay and say, oh, these group. For example, I used to think Jehovah's Witnesses were crazy. I used to honestly think that, the things I used to hear. But when I actually met them, they were very, very pleasant people, very well behaved. My first job was working with Jehovah's Witness, and then, for example, when you hear about police as well, I would generally say, don't hang around with police officers when they're on the beat. I mean, just I think that's a good bias to have, or people who scream at the top of their voices, carrying knives. I would say, generally speaking, that's a good bias to have.
Yeah, that's a good bias to
Well,
have.
there's a self-preservation. There's a self-preservation bias that I think we all have, and that we feel comfortable with. And sometimes, evolving past our biases isn't really possible because we want to keep these biases. We feel comfortable with them. We feel that self-preservation is also part of that bias. Let's say I don't like short, bald guys that carry M16s around, and therefore I hate them all. I'll never talk to them, and I'll try to screw them up whatever I can if they cross my path. That's a good bias to have, whether all short, bald people, whatever. I mean, I'm just using a stupid example.
Yeah, let's look at that
these
Jehovah's
are
Witness. Yeah, the Jehovah's Witness thing. Okay, they're gentle people. They come around from door to door, and then they try to push their philosophy onto you, and that's all fine. And we could say, oh, these people are gentle, and those people. But at what point they entered your yard? They came on my property. They violated my property. They knocked on my door, and essentially damaging my door just a little bit. And I had to open the door, which damages the door more. Now they're pushing themselves onto my property, and I have a right to say, hey, get the F off of my property, don't I?
Maybe, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far.
You do.
I usually just tell them I worship Satan, and they
right.
run the fuck away. They haven't been back in years and years and years, so that works. You know, not that I do.
What you're
not
doing
that
there,
I do, but
what
it's,
you're doing
I'm
there
just
is
running them off.
You're employing some red pill logic and a care ethics, and a way of care ethics that you're trying to care for them, even though they don't understand. That you care for them enough to say, please exit, go back onto the sidewalk and keep walking, because this is all mine around here. And that's what I'm saying about my channel. This is all mine around here. And
okay, if I can be a little melodramatic, what's going on over in the US where all the white people are scared of all the black people? I'm generally, obviously this is all about generalization, but
yeah,
but over in New York, it's like all the white people stay away from all the black people. It's like there's a general rule where the white people think if there's a group of black guys, you cross over the road. Or if there's a group of black guys inside a store, you don't enter the store. I've seen that. So that's not like something.
If you look, and no, I don't think we're all scared of black people. I mean, I'm not. You know, I get along with them quite well, actually. But
I wouldn't live where I lived if I was afraid of Hispanic people.
But look, if I go into neighborhoods, whether it be you know, a rough neighborhood like where there's a lot of drugs going on, a lot of gang warfare, whether they be Puerto Ricans or Hispanic, whatever, I'll bundle them up into Hispanic, black, or white, or any of it.
Put Asians in there.
Okay. All right, let's put Asians. Let's put any gang environment.
They're going to hit you with mathematics and just.
We're so racist, guys.
At this point,
for yourself.
At this point, I would feel some type of threat. You know, some type of imminent threat from these people. Would it be fear? Unless they approached me in a violent way, no, it wouldn't be fear, but it would be an apprehension. Okay, so of course I wouldn't be stupid enough to walk down a block or what have you. You know, let's say in the middle of Detroit, you know, in the middle of gangland or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah.
Where you got the Crips and the Bloods or whatever the fuck, you know, all killing each other across the street. No, I wouldn't go down there, and of course you would be afraid of that. So there are certain.
They have the same thing to deal with from the other's perspective. Coming into a white neighborhood can be very dangerous for them because of the police and because of the.
Definitely.
I live in redneck heaven here, guys. You know, I mean, every other guy's named Billy Bob, right? And they're wearing fatigues. They got a gun rack, a pickup truck, and all that shit. So, you know, as a black guy or anybody not of this culture, you would feel a little bit threatened, I would imagine.
Yeah, because they fly the Confederate flag.
Yeah. And yes, they do. You know, I get vehicles all day long coming by here, driving past my house. They got a Confederate flag flying on the back of the truck.
But isn't that what both communities are saying to each other? On one end, they're saying there's Billy Bob, which is a description of Billy Bob and a Confederate flag. But on the other end, the white people are going, well, there's Leroy there, and he's a drug dealer. And so it's the same thing in equal directions. It's just that we have to realize that it is the same thing in equal directions and try to eliminate these biases.
Do you know what's funny? Where I live, there's an all-white area. And if you're not white, you walk through there, you're going to get trouble. I know because I used to live in that area. And also there's an all-Asian area, meaning Asian as in Indian, not the Asian as you Americans understand. And if you're white and you walk down there, you're going to get trouble. I've lived in both areas. And the thing is, racism breeds racism because once a young Asian guy walks through that white area and he gets a shit kicked out of him by 5 white guys, he's going to hate white guys thereafter. And the same in this Asian area. If a little 13-year-old white kid walks through this area, he gets the shit kicked out of him by a gang of Asians. He's going to hate Asians, and sadly, it just self-perpetuates his racism.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
is it a good thing to have, though? You know, is it a good self-preservation to have?
No, that's, I mean, being cognizant of where you're at, your surroundings, and not walking into stupid situations like that is paramount, okay? And sometimes, yeah, okay, stupid shit does happen, but it's not the norm, you know, it's kind of the
It's the
rarity.
exception to the norm.
And look, there's white trash around here. There's some trailer parks around here I wouldn't go into, okay? And, you know, it wouldn't, not as an individual. I might go in there with a few of the guys I ride with, but I wouldn't go in there by myself. I wouldn't piss on these people if they were on fire. And they're of my own race, so it's not a racial thing. It's just having some sense, some common sense about what environment you put yourself into, okay? So if you think, hey, you know, I'm going to party with these people, and they're all different than I am, they might have a different bias than you do, right?
No.
So you put yourself at risk, and if you get your ass kicked, well, whose fault is that? You know, they took advantage of you, and it's like dealing with animals realistically, that they are going to converge on you being the weak one by yourself. So why would you put yourself into that situation? Have a little bit of common sense. You get in it, and I don't care what race you are or what color or what nationality. It goes across the board. I mean, to all of them.
Well, I think that's the real message we're telling the guys out there. I mean, if you're listening, guys, what we're saying, it's nothing to do with race or skin color. It's about arseholes. You know, stay away from the arseholes. Stay away from the gangsters. You can get arseholes and gangsters, any skin color, any race. Personally, I don't think there's any race except for the human race. So, yes, I think we're all agreed on there.
It depends too. What you know, look, I can walk into almost any bike clubhouse in the county here, you know, and feel perfectly safe, even though I know that anybody that may not be of my whatever you want to call it, you know, wouldn't feel very safe in that environment. So therefore, I know that. And I know that I'm not 100% safe. You know, shit can always, a lot of people have short fuses, so anything can transpire. But I feel confident and comfortable in that situation, whereas I wouldn't feel comfortable being in a, let's say, you know, Asian gang bunch hanging out around the barbecue pit and just walk over and say, "Hey, dudes, what's up?" You know? Come on,
I'd like to see you do that.
No, well, I wouldn't do it. That's the point.
What we're really talking about here is neighborhoods and areas of poverty that is equally distributed in, say, the United States and England, and those. It breeds a hyper-inflated desire for wants and needs and despair. And if you become a victim of them wants and needs and despairs because these people do not have and some people don't have and some people do have, if you walk into that neighborhood and project yourself as a target, it's your own fault. I mean, because you have to understand that these are pockets of poverty and these people do not have, like many of us do have. And we have to be, that's what TFM was trying to say back in the Ibmore thing, that poverty breeds these things, really. And if we attack poverty and we have a war on poverty and we rise people above them, will the bias and bigotry go away if we do that? Yes, I do believe that.
But then you get
we're always going to have in-group preference.
Yeah, but then you're going to get the bias against poor people. Are all poor people violent thieves?
No, I'm not saying they're violent.
I know that.
I'm saying that there's simply a need that is not fulfilled in them, and they don't have the you know, they look out upon the better communities and go, oh, that guy's got a house, that guy's got a car, that guy's got a mini bike, and then their children are raised that way, and then you may insert yourself into that situation where you're being blind to your, God, I hate to say this word, privilege.
You, you Yeah, well, I mean, it's a fact of life. People,
Yeah, it's a fact of
I'm more
life.
fortunate. I'm more privileged than other people. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I don't mean it in a feminist way. You know, don't take it that way.
That's
Because
okay, bro.
those
We're not
many,
gonna judge you
yeah,
because you use the word privilege, are we, guys?
yeah, because I'm just using it as the broad sense, and many feminists are more
We'll just
privileged than I
respect
am.
your privilege.
I respect my privilege, yeah, or my authority. That's a Cartman joke. If anybody didn't understand that,
Yeah.
I'm
I
hearing
love
some
that.
interesting similarities here in the conversation because you're talking about, for example, an impoverished community that is subject to certain kind of social distress,
Yeah,
and how putting yourself in that position, basically, you really do have to take responsibility for the result.
right.
Yep.
Oh,
Now,
sort of. Yeah,
would you
it's
apply
not
that?
your, yeah, it's not your fault that that happened, but you can remove the risk factor by not doing that.
Okay, so would you apply that same thing
I
to
know where you're going. Yeah,
the previous? Yeah, where am I going?
yeah, you're going back to the original conversation.
With
Just don't.
Warhorse and his hypersensitivity.
Mm. You see, the question is, what if you're one of these bleeding heart liberals that says, you know what, I don't
Well,
believe in labels. I'm gonna go through this.
Well, wait a
Uh,
minute. Why does not believing in labels equate to bleeding heart liberal?
well, just bear with me. Just
Well,
listen to
it
my
doesn't.
point.
It doesn't because after a while, at a certain age,
see,
you
that's a
learn to
label
give
too.
up. You give up labels. You know, you see the foolishness of aligning yourself with any one label.
Well,
And
yeah,
Yeah,
because after a while it all becomes bullshit, lies,
yep,
and corrupt presentation.
corrupt presentation, right? Yeah, and you know, we try to be, you know, we try to be caring, good people. God knows, I can't imagine any one of the guys that I have ever invited on here as not wanting to have an. Most men have an altruism about them,
Yeah, I
and it's
hope
just
so.
I'm
it.
just sitting here laughing because what I was going to say is I need a minute to go and get a tampon for all the bleeding of my liberalism.
You was really offended by that.
What?
No,
No,
would
no,
you
I'm not
believe?
offended by it. I think it's hilarious.
Would you believe that when I go
I'm
around my
Mgtow.
friends in this neighborhood, uh, I identify myself as as a liberal.
well, John, do you feel like you've been compartmentalized? Good, I can't talk anymore. Shit, I need to quit drinking beers here.
Needs another beer.
Compartmentalized, yeah. Oh,
uh,
Jesus.
do I feel like I've been compartmentalized?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
No,
Yes.
actually, I don't, because I think in
Okay.
most instances, the people who apply the labels are the actual ones that are compartmentalizing themselves.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
And
John,
it's
do you get
kind of
the?
like talking to someone who's psychologically fucked up.
Hey, John, do you get the impression that the idea of? I know the era and age of liberalism that you come from, and I come from it too. Uh, People got this idea of liberalism a little bit screwed up, the younger kids, because the meaning of liberal for me is that I'm red pill. I accept and I listen to other people's opinions, and then I dissect them, and then I take them to a further theory of ethics, uh, and that's what I use as liberal. I'm open to other people's opinions, uh, but that has been taken to the liberal we see now, which I do not equate myself with, the PC liberal.
Well, my definition of liberal is imagine you have property with a white picket fence around it. Well,
Yes,
that white picket fence represents a conservative boundary.
right.
Being liberal is you take down the fence and you allow people to cross your lawn for the sake of being able to exchange with them and discover a little bit more about the broader world. But my liberalism doesn't mean they get to come and camp on my fucking front lawn
Right.
and tell me how everyone else should be treating my front lawn.
Yeah, how you need to grow your grass a certain way or how you do that. Yeah, there's
Exactly.
Plato gives a very good reference to the soap salesman. and I take this to heart sometimes, and I say that there's my definition of liberal and is this the conservative, and he does the conservative, liberal, and the soap salesman. When you come into town, the liberal will say, hey, all you people that don't bathe, start using soap. And then he has the right to say that. And the conservative says, no, you're not allowed to post these signs and he's saying that people are dirty, so let's not do that, and let's have a couple little laws about that. So in a sense, the conservatives are right. We have to have a couple little laws to say, no, you're not allowed to call names or say people are dirty or oversaturate the community with and remember the spectrum, we're all soap salesmen. We're all selling some sort of soap.
Fair enough. And what I would categorize myself as is a capitalist. I would post a sign that says soap for sale for those self-aware.
For those that are self-aware, yes. And that's my idea of being liberal. And then we get these two, and there's another portion to this of capitalism, and then Plato expands that out into capitalism and totalitarianism, and this is how they think of the soap salesman and what should be done. And they're all trying to form an opinion of how this is supposed to be doing right. And the idea of right and wrong sometimes gets a little bit skewed in these things, but when I associate myself as the liberal, I'm just a guy that believes that I should be able to open a hot dog stand in my front yard as long as it's within my property and make money from that, and and put a little sign up there within the boundaries of social, not put a 40-foot sign into my neighbor's yard, and then you go, oh, I have the right to do it. No, that's not. I'm not allowed to do that, but I'm allowed to put a little sign next to my my hot dog stand, sell my hot dogs, make some money, provide for my living without anybody causing me to have licensure or tapping my wealth out of that in taxes.
It sounds like we're all middle of the road.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't sound like anybody's really on the hard right or the hard left here. And I'm not. I'm certainly not. You know, it depends on each subject matter.
Yeah, we're all going to have some conservative values. You can say yourself as a liberal, but you know deep down in your soul that we all have some conservative values too, and that's where they make sense.
Of course, it depends on the subject matter. You know, sometimes I fall on the left, sometimes I fall on the right. It depends on what I'm applying myself to and what my thoughts are on the subject. So, and I've taken these stupid online tests before, you know, years ago, just for the fun of it, and I've always been middle of the road, man. I mean, I'm a fence sitter, I guess you could call it, right? But
well,
yeah, go ahead.
You got to bear one thing in mind. If you fall sometimes on the left and fall sometimes on the right, then essentially what you're doing over and over again is you're falling for it.
Well, okay, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of other options, you know.
Yeah, I wish
unless you do check out, and even if you do check out, they'll find you eventually and drag you screaming and kicking back into the mix. So your personal view of right and wrong, and how you perceive things, and your own standards, your own morality, back to that, you know, all these things factor in on how you see everything that's happening. So basically, no, I can't call myself a you know, on the left or the right. I am kind of in the middle of the road because I do flip-flop back and forth. Right. I can't help that. That's just how I'm made.
Let's move this back into Mgtow and then talk about the going Galt aspect of Mgtow. And John's got the John Galt thing, and that's what we're kind of doing. We're all going Galt just a little bit, and we can see the argument presented out there as some of them take a very hard right stand, and then I'll just say Bernard Shakin takes a conservative stand, and then TFM takes a hard liberal stand, and we see this argument with Barbarossa arguing with Bernard Shakin and arguing with there was that one guy that was arguing for the hard conservative. But the going Galt stand kind of makes you so middle of the road that you kind of step back and you just try to observe now. You're just trying to be that observer and get what's best for you, what you're allowed to get what's best for you, and then move yourself away from those political mainstream garbage that I have to take the hard left or the hard right. As soon as I see that, the hard left or the hard right, I say, no, you're being very illiberal at that point.
Well,
And
actually, with golf, wouldn't that be, as I read it, I guess extreme would be level 4 Mgtow, right?
Yeah.
And that would be checking out of the system altogether. So that would mean that you wouldn't be left or right. It just wouldn't matter, period.
It just
You have
doesn't
now
matter for us.
left
Yeah.
it, and it's no longer of any value to you at all, which, if you shut the TV off and you disassociate yourself with everything out there as much as possible, then you are on your way in that direction. So how much can you run your own life?
Yes, how
Your
much?
own, I mean, how much are you dependent on certain things that the government does have a hand in, and how much does that affect your life? And very few people would say nothing. I think we're all affected by it.
Yeah, we all know there's certain things. I need clean water. Unless I start filtering my water, and this is about going galt too. If I started filtering my own water, and this works very Mgtow, and I turn the water off, the government would no longer have any say-so in how much water I use, what I have. So if I started filtering my own water, I'm kind of going galt with that. Now, if I provide my own electric, I provide my going galt with that. And I think we have the right to do that. If I want to put a windmill on top of my house, as long as it's silent and it doesn't affect my neighborhoods. But here in Ohio, I'm not allowed to do that because we're all into this cooperative where and then that goes to healthcare too. We're all in this cooperative that, hey, if I wanted to have a doctor and have the guy down the street that I know is competent and say he works on feet, and I say, man, I got this foot problem. He says, I can fix that. The government would say that's illegal. Now the going galt thing is very, very, it's very, very useful to get the people back what they need. If you can start.
But Joe, here's the thing too. Even going galt and describing it like you do, filtering water, you would need filters.
I would need filters.
If you go off the grid on electric, you would need solar panels.
I would need
if you do all these things, you are in effect putting into the system anyway, because corporations and companies that make these products are all under the government influence anyway.
Yes. Well,
so
yeah, depending on my need for electric, I would say if I could get a 12-volt generator out of a junkyard, started on a fan, and I ran my TV in a battery system for 4 hours, 1 hour a day, and I went on the computer for 1 hour, and I said that was acceptable to myself, and I used minimal lighting, and that became acceptable to myself. There's a bar that's raised up. What's acceptable to you?
Right, and again, here we go. The generator has to run on gas.
Yes.
Somebody made the generator. Somebody made the batteries. Okay, it all comes down to this entire huge paradigm of what's interconnected and how we're connected to it. There's no getting out of it. I mean, there's just no getting out of it at all.
To a certain point,
you can't go into the desert, okay, and start making your own water, digging your own well by hand, and then making mud bricks with grass to build your own little house, and then go from there forward. You're still reliant on the system. One way or the other, you're always going to feed into it.
Right. Now we can start, if you wanted to make bricks in your backyard and started doing your own structure and doing that and then filtering your own water, you should have the right to do that.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to interject, and more specifically about the moniker and the name that I use and why I use it. The name John Galt I apply more in terms of an existential perception of myself, and what I try to do is I try to share that perception with other people. Mm-hmm. And the question that I ask myself is,
It's your
Who
character.
or what am I being occupied by? Now you can about water, and you can say, I know where the water comes from, and I know the business involved in delivering that water. For me, the name John Galt is more of an existential thing in which I ask, do I know what I believe, and do I know where it's coming from and why I believe it?
Okay, yeah, it's a good way to look at things, and if we, you know, if your needs are that of, we're talking about individual needs here. What are you willing to accept? What are your needs, and how much do you have to involve? But we can minimally cut back on these things where we involve ourselves with community and groups and those things in life. If if I'm smart enough to put together a solar panel system and I stop needing electricity, yeah, fine, great. I'm taking a little out of the system, and I'm taking a little of their tax money to do that.
Well, here's another one for you, Joe. Aside from, do you celebrate Christmas?
Not as much. We talked about this really earlier, me and Warhorse. Like I really don't do that much anymore.
I
Because
haven't celebrated Christmas in probably about close to 15 years now.
yeah, it's something that it puts uh, too much stress on me, and that's one of the things I kind of removed with going Mgtow is I don't let it's the same thing as Valentine's Day. I don't let those social stressors make me buy things that I can't afford.
Oh, I use Christmas
Yeah,
as an excuse to buy myself something that
Oh
makes
yeah,
me happy that I
yeah,
normally wouldn't justify. Um, but other than that, the whole hoopla of it and everything
yeah.
else. Now, listen, I enjoy the music. I enjoy the,
Oh yeah,
the colorful lights as long as somebody else is putting them up and taking them down. I don't care. But I don't buy into the whole economic, commercialization of it and all that other bullshit. The
yeah.
hype and the tear jerking movies my wife used to drive me crazy with. Um, I you know, but Christmas, it's like the winter solstice. That's the way I look at
that's
it.
right.
The days are going to get longer afterwards. I'm happy. I'm glad they're going to get
Oh
longer.
yeah.
That means more riding hours in a day for me. And other than that, no, none of the holidays mean anything to
Yeah.
me, guys. I mean,
One
none
thing,
of them.
one thing in going golf in this way that I perceive it is one thing supplements the other thing too. If I bake my own bread, that means I save $1.25 every couple days. And if I do this and I go galt on my electric, that means I can save $300, $400. And if I have that at the end of the year, I can supplement a better Christmas for myself, or I can choose to be altruistic and supplement a better Christmas for my children. Now, that all comes from me going gulp to begin with, uh, saving a little money here, putting that money in my pocket, and having, like you did that, whereas you went and bought yourself a TV. Heck yeah, that's a good thing because
Yeah.
you saved the money down the road from thinking the going galt way. Otherwise, if you would have just bought, we see this with feminism and feminists, they just spend sporadically on everything, and then when it comes down to the end of the year, they're not responsible. They have the credit card, they build their credit card up there, they're buying more into society instead of saying, no, I can, I can tailor back the things and still be very comfortable during the year with my ideology of going galt, and that way I don't have to overextend my credit at the end of the year.
Well, with me, it's more like, look, there's no pressure on me.
Yeah,
For years and years with the family around and everything else, there was always a pressure to buy gifts,
right.
and
Yeah,
whatever the cost, and you never looked into what's the best deal, what is the most usable thing that you could have. And this is something I grew up with, is in my family, don't ever buy me anything I can't use,
yeah. Being
and
frugal is good.
don't buy me frivolous bullshit and everything else, which my wife's family, on the other hand, that was, just buy stupid shit that goes on the shelf. You never look at it again. Wasted money, right? So with me, when I buy something for myself, and I bought my TV a couple months ago or whatever, I even had the video on it, you know, where I did the research, I got the best deal on it, I found out all about this shit and everything else. Then I went out and did it, I bought it, and then I just called it my Christmas present. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like it was a Christmas present that I kept wrapped up until Christmas Day or any of that bullshit. It was
Yeah,
just
look at
something
all
that
the
I said,
package, yeah.
we're close enough now, you know, but I got to do my research, and it was something I wanted, it was something I needed, it made me happy.
Yeah.
You know, and
And what we're really talking
this
about
is,
here is peak events in our life, aren't we?
yeah, it is. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was a
you make
peak
your own.
event. Yeah, you make your own peak events in our life, and that's what some of the guys went as
I'm
deep
still
as
talking about labels.
yeah.
I mean, you didn't
Catch
buy
up,
your.
John.
What's that?
I said, catch up, John.
Yeah.
I'm still
So
talking about labels. If you didn't buy, if it wasn't really a Christmas present, why the hell did you call it a Christmas present?
made them feel good.
Because it was close to Christmas, and I justified it on the video as, hey, Christmas came early. It was a tongue-in-cheek
Okay,
term
fair
to
enough.
use for it.
Okay.
Not that it meant, you know, a Christmas present is something you put under the tree, you get to unwrap, and blah, 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 you know, all this hoopla goes with it. I just happened to buy it, and I thought, hey, you know, I'm putting up this wall mount thing, I'm, you know, squeezing it into this spot and everything. I made a YouTube video about it,
Yeah.
and here it is, you know, so I just called it that. It had no intrinsic meaning, really,
Yeah, but there was a
other
peak
than,
happiness there, wasn't there?
yeah, I mean,
There was
fuck, I
a
was so proud of it and so
yeah.
cool. You know, I got this big
That's what
fucking thing.
we all strive. Some of the guys around here, Marcus hit on it and TFM hit on it, but they don't quite understand fully about the F to G peak events in their lives. And these are like electricity. It goes to the top, it comes back to the bottom, it goes to the top, and you want to chart F to G, those peak events in your life. And that's what we're doing when we do this GALT thing. I'm going down, and I want to pick up, and I want to identify one of those peak events in my life where I can fully utilize that and be the peak happiness. And then now I can draw a system in my life where I can expect on this date, on this month, on this date, I will experience one of those peak events, because that's more scientific and rational on a way of looking at life than anything I've ever looked at before. I just simply draw an F to G line where I measure the events. I look forward to these events, and that's what they do somewhat with Christmas and somewhat with Easter and somewhat with that, and people do this in society. But now I'm looking at it more, what can I do on these low parts to supplement these high parts? And then we do this in economics, the F to G in economics, and you can see it on Wall Street. And there's a funny little story that goes along with this. The economists in the 1970s hired a bunch of mathematicians to figure out the F to G so they can figure out the Wall Street, what were going to be the peak events on Wall Street, where they can chart them. And
Right.
the mathematicians gave them the F to G theory, and then they stepped back and they laughed, and then they giggled, and then they made a few articles about it. But what the economists didn't know was they already had the peak events already in their life. All they had to do was notice them.
Yeah.
So in greed, sometimes we don't notice what we already have, and we start looking for something outward and outside of what them waves come in your life and leave your life. And it's very we're stuck in this natural world where those waves come around, and you can start leading your life in a Mgtow fashion that you can expect that wave's going to come around, boom, right there, and it starts
You know,
working out.
it's funny that after a while, though, I think you start to realize, or in my case, that I have more now than I will ever need again. In other words, if I don't buy anything, other than something breaking down. Let's say the microwave takes a crap. Of course,
Yeah.
I'm going to go out and buy a new one. Whatever. No big deal. But frivolous shit, right? I don't need a new motorcycle because the paint
Yeah,
doesn't
got
look
one.
good on mine or whatever. I mean, I'm not doing that. And I look at everything I've acquired throughout my life, and I've gotten rid of a lot of it, trust me, but I still have most of my auto repair shop here, you know, and I've been slowly trying to get rid of that. I've been, like we talked about earlier, the RC helicopter shit, that I'm trying to give away.
Yeah.
I just want to unload a lot of this unnecessary burden in my life because I realize, look, I'm on the downhill slope of my life, and I don't mean this for sympathy or awe, whatever. It's just a fact,
It's
right?
just
We get to a certain age, we know we only have X number of years to live, right? I'm not going to make it to 120 or whatever. So you figure, okay, well, what do I have in life? Who am I going to leave things to? And really, does it even matter if I leave it to this particular person or that particular person? I've been through enough death and things by the family that they fight over, and a year later it's in the garbage or not even thought about, right? So you start to say, all right, where do I draw the line here? I don't need any more crap except what makes me immediately happy right now of what's necessary to make my life feel fulfilled. And once you get to that, I guess, very selfish point in life, you realize that other expenditures, foolish expenditures that give you very little bang for the buck, if you will, are not worth your time.
Yeah, sometimes like you said the other day, there's sometimes, or even today, sometimes just sitting down making your own bread gives me a lot of joy. Uh,
Yeah,
Sometimes doing the simplest little things that I've forgotten to do because we're saturated in society to go to the supermarket, I can go to the supermarket and buy a 30-pound bag of flour, cook pizza bread, flour, my pasta, never have to leave the house, be very fulfilled and happy doing it, and find some enjoyment in that, find some of that happiness in my life again. Uh, Feminism doesn't lean or tend to lean towards these things that make men happy. Uh,
well, look,
it-
look, Thanksgiving, I don't, a big deal. It's something that we've always celebrated and everything else, and it's just me and the dog now.
yeah,
And there was no reason for me to go out and cook a turkey or do any of that bullshit. I could have gone to my grocery store where they had a pre-cooked meal. I mean, everything, the whole 9 yards,
yeah,
shoot and match, one price, relatively cheap actually, and I could have taken that home and made believe or whatever, which I'm sure a lot of women do that shit.
right.
They'll buy that meal
Yeah,
ready made, put it in front of their family. Here you go. But instead, I decided, no, I want to cook this. Number one, it kept me occupied. I had to get online. I had to look certain things up that I'd forgotten, and it it made me very fulfilled to
yeah,
overcome this. And then it was great afterwards. Yeah, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of hoopla for nothing. I mean, so it's Thanksgiving, but me and the dog ate good.
yeah.
We
The
had a
dog
good
ate
time.
good.
Yeah, we both did, man. We ate like kings, right?
Yeah, you know
So,
what? People often accuse me of treating my dog like a god. Uh, you know, no, that dog. They say you spoil that dog. That's not good. Boy, that dog's still eating turkey nowadays. Right this week, I just chunked him off. That was his instead of a can or the dry food. I gave him some of that turkey, and you know, it, But that's what makes me happy, and that's what makes you happy. Uh,
yeah.
Buying
Well,
that free.
talk about a dog having an entitlement complex.
Yeah.
That's meet my dog.
Yeah, me, my dog too. But that makes me happy. I think of him like a member of the family. Uh, I don't desensitize myself to the dog's needs and wants. And if he wants spaghetti, he ate spaghetti earlier this week. We sat down and we gave him a spaghetti dinner, and he loves spaghetti. It's
Oh
so good
yeah.
for dogs too. Uh, but that's what makes us happy in our old age, and that's what we do. But we get saturated with no, just go buy. You know, and that's a feminine sort of view. Uh, and when people buy those pre-made dinners from the store, I often look at those goes and man, they just took all the joy out of cooking, and that smell of the onions and the if you brown your onions, that smell goes through the house, and
Oh
you
yeah.
start making the stuffing, and there's a certain joy, and everything kind of works together, and it's a real holiday, and the house has the smell, the activities are going on, the whatever is doing, and it wakes us up, and a little bit we get some kind of cognitive feelings about that, and it represents some joy. We can look back in our life and say, yes, I remember the Thanksgiving with John and Bill and Sue, and that was perfect. I love that. I smell it, and then I associate that with the happiness. I can sit down in a very peaceful, serene manner with my dog, and right now it's my son and maybe my bus buddies over, and have a really good day without just all the garbage.
It's more spiritual, Joe. I
Yeah,
think that's what it's about, is being very secure and at peace with your condition or situation in life.
yeah, yeah. Be able,
And it's just a very calming effect,
yeah, it's
almost a
very, very calm. The
a
male situation. Yeah,
yeah, a
the
catharsism that takes place.
cathartism. Yeah,
Whether it's that chopping onion, sautéing,
yeah.
the mushroom, yeah, the whole nine yards. But
Now
I
you
see
add,
we've run off John here.
yeah. Now you add one woman to that situation. What happens? It's all of a sudden, oh, the beans are burning. They're not right. This is happening wrong. It's all that mental
Drama,
garbage, drama,
drama,
and then
drama. That always has to be fucking drama.
yeah, men add such a relaxing thing, and this goes all the way back to what I did with my son the other day. Uh, I appropriately designated the father figure, made everything okay. There was a peace and quiet and a serenity in the house, which we both enjoy. And men, that's what men provide.
Hmm.
Women provide the drama and the stress, and then we combat that with this serenity and the knowing everything's okay thing that we do naturally. And that's such a need in the family situation, which is dissolving ever faster. And when a person says we don't need a father figure in our lives, we can do this just fine. No, you're removing that from the situation. The the calmness, men have learned over their lives, and I think most men have learned over their life how to get that serenity when we need it. We go off to the woods, we take these walks, we do these simple little things in our garages and our man caves and in the kitchen, and we write and do those things, and all those things are very serene, very calming. What do women bring to the table? Drama. And then
Well,
that's our
yeah,
society. Yeah, that's our
they
society in a
they
nutshell.
seem to want to take charge or think they're in charge, and a lot of men are allowing that to happen,
A lot of
where
men are
the
allowing
woman
that happen.
takes up, the woman take that charge, and then she feels overburdened, overstressed, and
Overstress,
uh,
yeah.
the guy feels like, she's got it, she's going to act this way and everything. I'm just going to sit down and watch football. Tell me when dinner's done.
Yeah.
And this is a problem. A lot of the guys are really turning their back on what they should be doing. Turn the friggin' TV off. I don't care how much you like football, but if it's going to be a family event with your kids, and everything else, get involved in it and do something about it. Don't just become this lazy cunt, if you will,
Yeah.
and say, well, no wonder she's having a freak out session. We can blame a lot on the women, and granted, they do overreact a lot, but I think a lot of guys are dropping the ball also.
Yeah,
So
this goes back to the sweep our own side of the street thing.
yeah, definitely.
We could sweep our own side of the street, and you know what happened? And let's just use that. Continue using the analogy of the Thanksgiving dinner. Uh, if one guy notices that your house is so serene, so calm, so nice to be at, there's a pleasant smell in the air, you do it perfectly, guess what? People are going to start coming. People are going to start wanting that, and people will start showing up, and then you're not as lonely. You're not as I hear these guys, no, on Thanksgiving, my friend comes over, my son comes over, people show up, we do that, and it's peaceful and it's nice. And it was just a small matter of just trying to, I'm in charge now. I'm doing the Mgtow thing. I'm making it that way. And however that works out, we're all going to be in different situations in our lives. But, we can still take the effort to sweep our side of the street and prove, and you don't have to, it's not generally a prove. You can prove to yourself that, yeah, men are pretty good, decent human beings. And we have something to offer out here. If it's just in the micro, like those situations, we do that in the macro. We do that in every situation in life.
Sure.
It's just what we do. I was talking to John the other day that he says when he comes into a situation, he notices that there's an automatic, people start acting right. There's a calmness around them that he provides. And I think all males do that as we get older. We could take situations, dissect them very quick, and provide the relative information that it's the way our brains work. Provide the relative information that's needed to defuse the situation, anti-dramatize it, and then make it. We can laugh and make lemonade out of lemons, and that's the need of the father figure. That's the need of the male, the dominant male figure.
Yeah, but it does come with age, experience, and so many other things. Just life's lessons that we learn along the way. And I think what we're trying to do now, a lot of times, and it's good to see a lot of the younger guys listening and taking heed, if you will, that we're not trying to bullshit them, that this will come and you can't force it. They're going to have to make their mistakes. They're going to have to do what they do and go through just what you and I went through and everybody else that is up there in life. The times may be different. There aren't any more hippies around. There's no more, bazillion drugs and rock and roll, whatever, but it's changed, but it's still the same. It's a progression of learning and finding that calmness that eventually comes after you've gotten that out of your system. So we're in a good position to a degree, and of course there's always going to be a little bit of kickback.
Yeah, we can lead them to the water faster. They don't have to wander around in the desert forever, being stressed and being tense. They can come to the water pond and drink with the old guys earlier if they want. I see some very mature young men around here that kind of get it. What bothers me is,
Joe, they intellectually get it, yes.
Yeah.
But
they got to apply it.
To walk the walk is a whole different story, and that comes with time. Yeah. And lessons learned that I can't teach anybody, neither can you. We can only tell them about certain things that may not be applicable to this day and time, but if they think about it enough, it may keep them from doing certain stupid things that we did. And if it's just one stupid thing, they'll do the other million stupid things that we did.
But they won't do that one.
Yeah, that one, and that's so much better than what we did all the way. So, hey, look, it's all a good thing, really.
Yeah, it goes back to that applied technology. So this whole conversation, you apply the things you learn in life, and I'm not saying math or that stuff, applied technologies, but once you start applying the things that you learn in life and you get that little bit of age or wisdom, they can take it faster, or they can keep fighting against it and take it real slow and end up that 70-year-old guy at the bar that's still complaining about not having a bitch, or be that guy at a moderate age, 30, and really getting it. And guess what? If these guys get it at 30 years old and finally get it and apply these things, they have another 30 years to really, really be happy, gain some riches, whatever riches you apply that to, I apply happiness as a rich now. That every day that I'm happiness, that's my riches growing. That I don't have all that stress in my life and all that bullshit in my life and that garbage in my life that I used to carry around with me as a weight on my back, like I had a knapsack full of bricks. No, remove those bricks and be happy. And that's what applying everything you learn, the applied technology of living. Do you think this is probably a good place to end this, Morris?
Yeah, actually I do. Jesus Christ, we've been on for over 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to go around in circles after this.
Right.
And,
yeah. So it kind of circular logic back to the
well, not circular logic, but
logic back to what we started talking about, because that's what we do. We kind of form these things where there's a logic. If you listen from the whole thing through back to the end logic, hey guys, just relax, take it easy, take it in, man.
Yeah, enjoy the trip, man.
Enjoy the trip.
Enjoy the scenery, enjoy the trip, kick back, relax. All the shit you think is important right now, being young, won't be important in the least little bit in time to come.
Yeah, and then start enjoying those things, man. Yesterday out in the garage with the scooter and everybody, got so much done. It's like, wow, and then you had some fun doing it and enjoy this. I found we got a scooter that was wrecked. That was just, you seen the picture of it. It was just wrecked. And man, I'll tell you, by the end of the winter, I'm gonna put a picture of it up. We're gonna have this thing badass.
8 hangers and a raccoon tail on the back.
Yeah, a little. I want the skull mirrors and the with the hand skull things that you put on the handlebars. It's gonna be badass. But it's just,
give me a call. I know where to get that shit.
It's just taking it easy and doing it a little at a time. Those 15-minute little jobs a day that don't irritate you build up and make the whole job at the end of the year. But it'll get there. But don't be the kid like my son was yesterday, just kicking the kickstart and saying, "Why isn't it starting?" Well, there's a lot more to it than that. Let's just ease our way through it. I ordered the what did I order? Oh, I ordered the CDI online for that.
Okay.
A new CDI, the emission control unit, and then the plug and the new wire that all come in the package that I got on Amazon for a great price of $10.12.
Woohoo! Well, I'll get with you, man, and give me a shout anytime you need any advice that I can give you on the mechanical end of it. Give me a call, Joe.
Yeah, that bowl float, I got to take that carburetor off and see if I can get to that bowl float. That's one of those standard Japanese carburetors.
Yeah, they're easy. They're easy on those little engines. They're real easy. So
I got to take that apart and then fix that bowl float and see if it's just an adjustment on the side too. Maybe it's just because it's squirting out the little holes on the top and the gas is coming out. What do you call that valve? The hose valve.
No, it's a needle valve and seat.
Yeah, so it's coming out back in.
Yeah, get with me another time, and I'll go through it with you, item by item. It's not a big deal. I've done a million of them. Yeah, I mean literally a million.
Oh, cool.
So,
so we're gonna have that done by then. So take it easy, guys. Do what makes you happy, and get that project. And you know what? Those little projects turn into life skills, and those life skills turn into wealth. And it's just taking it easy, following through it, be casual about it. Don't get stressed, no drama. You want to finish this up, Boris?
Well, I think we've just gone about round and round here on everything we could.
Yeah.
And it was an open subject, open talk this weekend. So we really had nothing to focus on per se,
Yeah.
But I think we really we got to a lot of different subjects that I hopefully might have helped a couple guys.
Hopefully, yeah. And with that, unless you want to give a summation of wisdom,
no, Don't drink as many beers as I've had today.
Yeah, don't drink. Yeah. Hey, my son grabbed my last beer on the way out the door. That just really kind of, I was like, oh.
Make him buy new ones.
Yes, I'm going to
Send
get
him
that
on a
beer
road
back.
trip.
He's going on a road trip up to the convenience to get that. And you guys take care and have a joyous weekend and enjoy the rest of the Sunday. You guys take care.
All right, bye.
If I